Anyway, thank you for the gift. Yellow.
Let's see. Um, I have a question. I guess why do you say trans men are men?
Because I believe that they fall within at least one valid definition of it.
A definition that is accepted by society, or just a definition that a minority of society accepts?
I would say a definition that the vast majority of society would understand to be true and accurate.
You honestly believe that?
Do I honestly believe that? Yes.
Okay, then what? So if the vast majority of people accept that to be true, then why are elected officials who are voted by the majority of the people disagree and are writing laws in opposition of that whole idea?
That's fascinating. So you can agree with the definition and disagree with the implications of it, right? Like
I would, but I
you
was
understand
arguing
the
the
distinction that
people
I'm
that are writing these
drawing?
laws are explicitly saying they disagree with that.
No, they're
They
not
don't
they're not
believe that to be true.
explicitly saying they disagree with the definition, right? They're explicitly saying that, well, not in the articulate way I would suggest. They might explicitly say it, but then act and linguistically arbitrate differently, right? So the measure is not whether they agree that that is the proper definition. The measure is if they would understand, right? If I communicated using that definition, and they would, right? So it's not their choice. It's the fact that in the English language, in fact, they do understand it in this way. And I can
I
show
would.
very
Okay.
clearly that
Okay.
this, yeah.
I hear what you're saying, and I came up with an example today that actually was the opposite of that because of people I guess changing the meaning of these gender definitions, changing the meaning of them. It's no longer clear when people make certain statements. So there was a college football player, a female, who was the first female non-kicker to participate in a college football game. Have you heard about that?
No.
In
Get
the
get
article,
get get to the point.
they kept describing her as first woman, first woman, not first female. So by using that term, first woman, and then with today's context of how people are using and changing the definition of woman, it was unclear of who that person was.
Was it
What
wait, what was unclear? If they were a
it
woman?
if they were a woman, if they were if what they meant by woman. Does that make sense?
I don't understand. So were they a trans woman?
No, they were not. But it's unclear because if we're changing the definitions
It's
of
not
what a woman
unclear. It's
is,
just
then
not
you don't know.
the thing is it's not unclear. They just said what they meant, right?
No, they
So if
didn't
I
say what they
said,
meant. They didn't say what they meant.
did they mean that it was a woman?
They meant it was a female.
Or did they mean that it was a woman? Would they have said the same thing if it was the first trans woman as well?
I think that no. I think they perhaps, but I think they would have said first trans
Exactly.
woman.
So
And
they
I would
weren't
say I was
they didn't mean first cis woman. What
I
they
would
meant was
say
the first woman.
I would
So
say
they actually
that
were they were just saying what they meant.
I would.
What they weren't trying to communicate what they weren't trying to communicate was sex. They were trying to communicate gender, and they succeeded in doing so. That's like saying, well, it's unclear
I would say
because they're
no
tall or
because
short
I
women.
would
They're
argue
just
that
different
okay.
types.
Do you honestly? Sorry, you just gonna ignore? Are you just not gonna let me respond? I let you
No, no,
talk.
no. The
Can
thing
I respond?
is,
I
you
would
don't
say
let me
I
talk.
would disagree
Actually,
with
you didn't
that
actually. No, you didn't actually let me talk. That's the thing.
because I
I was
wasn't done
trying to
talking and you
answer,
interrupted me.
and then I mean, you consistently interrupted me when I was making a clarifying point. So, and you literally,
Are
I
you?
don't think you
I'll let
actually
you
heard.
finish. I'll let you finish.
I don't think you actually heard what I said because you consistently interrupted me like 4 or 5 times. So, I mean, I made my point. Let's see if you heard it.
I would argue no because I would say in all the years of college football players playing game of college football that at least one of them was a transgender male,
A
and
transgender
I would
male.
argue yes, man.
So, like, a side woman at birth and then transitioned.
So
Sure.
yes,
So they were
so
trying to
I would
communicate
say
gender then.
I would say by changing these definitions, things are not as clear as they could be because it's not generally accepted by everyone. So you have to question what someone's actually saying when they're saying certain using certain gender associated terms.
We can do that. Um, so there are multiple definitions to words. Okay, you're making a prescriptivist argument. You're saying language would be more clear if it was this way. I'm making a descriptivist argument. I'm saying this is just the fact of language. Okay. So you can say, yeah, we should have one word for one meaning. Cool, but that doesn't mean that that's reality, right?
No,
It would also be clearer in language if dusting only had one meaning, if read only had one meaning, right? That would be clarity. But no one would say, right, that me using read in a certain way is wrong, right? So we can kind of throw away the clarity point. You need to argue as to why it is this way in language. But I think it is this way. I think the actual fact of the English language is that most people understand this term not just to be biologically associated.
but of course it's not. It's a social construct. It's not just biologically
So
rooted.
yeah, great. And yeah, so if you accept, I mean, if you accept the like semi-progressive narrative regarding the understanding of these terms, I don't see why you would disagree that trans men are men.
I don't accept what'd you call it, the progressive narrative. What'd you call it?
The semi-progressive narrative as to this definition.
I generally don't accept those type of narratives.
Yeah, but on what
I,
basis?
on the basis that they are designed to push an agenda.
Yeah, but you're pushing agenda as well, so I mean that can't
And what is that?
conceivably
What
be.
agenda is that? No, so
I
I'm
mean,
actually pushing an agenda. I don't want any laws passed or change to restrict people's activities and how they live their lives.
so what are you
I just
attempting to
disagree
do?
with the definition of the word. So I disagree with
Okay,
their
on what basis do you
self-identification
disagree with the definition?
because I do not believe that it is been accepted by society to be so. I'm not saying
Right.
it's
So
not moving in that direction, and more
okay,
people are
this is where we go in circles because you said that you accepted that it was a social construct.
because it
You
is.
said, great. So what does that mean?
That means society it is a social construct of society, something that society created to have a certain meaning, a certain definition. In the same way, race is a social construct. It is not something that's purely
Fascinating.
biological based.
Fascinating.
It is
So
something
do you,
that
yeah,
society has made up.
wonderful, wonderful. So do you believe that this social construct references only biological factors?
No, it does not. It references also
Great.
social
So
factors.
then on what, okay. So if it references social factors and trans people have the social factors of a certain gender, right? Then in that sense of the term, in that sense of the construct, they are a man.
So I'm not arguing that it cannot the social construct of gender cannot be changed over time.
No,
I'm
I'm saying
arguing
in fact
it
currently this
hasn't
is the
happened yet.
understanding of the term.
What was that?
I'm saying in
So,
fact currently this is the understanding of the term. We reference females.
I don't
Okay,
believe that.
it's not strictly accurate to say that we don't reference females as men, right? Like I can say
Hmm.
she's the man of the household. That's perfectly
Hmm.
acceptable. That's an understanding of man, right? And so my question is,
It's understanding
why are you
of a myth.
denying like, but the modern day linguists, the sociologists, like the people that engage in what people understand this term to mean, right? They're suggesting this definition regarding identity and presentation. Why are you denying that identity and presentation argumentation when it seems to be a well understood and well agreed upon term?
I mean, what you're saying is if repeat it long enough, it's true. I don't think,
No,
which
I
may
am
be
not
true,
saying that.
but I don't
Okay.
think it
Don't,
hasn't.
that's such a dog whistle. That's not what I said. Don't lie. I didn't
No, no,
say
I'm
that
not.
if you repeat it long enough. I did not say that.
I mean that is what I feel is happening. People are saying this is what it is. This is how it is. This is what it means. This is what it means, and they write it down and they get people to sign off on it. I do not believe we are there yet, where it is fully accepted as fact. I'm not saying that we're not moving in that direction, but it's
What do
not. It
you
hasn't happened
mean?
yet.
What do you mean by that? Like that is a meaningless phrase.
I
What
mean,
do you mean it's not
the
fully accepted as fact? I'm
social
saying if
construct
people
of
under
gender
I'm saying
has not
if people
changed to
understand
accept.
it doesn't have to. The word has to change. The word has to evolve. And the word has evolved. Because when
No,
I say man, when I reference someone in the street as a man, right, you're gonna think of things that trans men are. So when I reference to a trans man as a man, you know what I mean and you know what I'm referring to. Therefore, they properly are. Therefore, the words are doing their proper job of communicating.
if
And
you say
you've
trans, okay,
reject
so if you say trans man, do I know what you mean? Yes.
when I say man, you also know what I mean.
Yes, I do. I think maybe.
So if I point to a trans man, right, on the street and I say, "Hey, look over there at that man," right? And that trans man is next to two women, you're going to look at the trans man, right?
If you say trans man,
That
yes.
point No, if I say man, if I say, "Hey, look over there at that man," right? And there's a woman, a man and a woman, right? You're going to look at the trans man, who's a man. It's going to
Yes.
succeed in its communication, right?
I
And
don't know.
that is
I
the
don't.
metric I'm using. Is the word succeeding in its communication? And you could be dishonest and suggest that you wouldn't,
So
but
I'm
you
saying,
know who I'd be
if
referencing.
if in that situation, if you said what you said and you pointed, I can, with my eyes, I can figure out that, and in the context of the words you use, and understand what you meant. Yes.
Then the word means that thing. If most English speakers would understand what I mean, then that is the understanding of the word, or at least a understanding of the word. That's how we get definitions.
Okay. So that, I mean, that may be how we get definitions, but with social constructs, it's more than just how people define how some people define them.
I'm not saying we redefine the social construct. I'm just saying the word that is referencing whatever this amorphous concept is, right? The word properly references something that includes trans people because people understand it to include trans people.
Okay.
It would succeed in describing trans people.
Well, I would say in the news article, they did not succeed in describing what they meant.
They were described a woman and it was a woman.
It, so, which was meaningless information. If it's just that, it's meaningless information.
How is it meaningless? They described a woman and it meant a woman. I don't know what's
So
meaningless about that. They're
it's
referring to
like
a
using,
specific category of people. Are you a
what's the
woman?
word?
No. Cool. Then they weren't
So
referring to you in your category.
okay, let me. I'm trying to think of the word. Maybe meaningless. It's uh it's vague, vague, a vague word choice. And
I don't know what's vague about it. I don't know. Like, I don't understand what you're suggesting
so
is the issue,
so
right?
in the
So when I
English,
say,
like a
hey, look, a person did this thing, am I being vague? No, I'm
yes,
just saying what I
yes,
mean.
you're being vague. Yes, that
By
could be
what?
an
There's no
old
objective
man.
metric
It
to
could
it,
be a
right?
child. It could be
That's
a
cool. But
woman. It
if it's
could be a
not
man.
relevant, but if it's not relevant, I'm not being vague, right?
So with the
So
accomplishment
vaguity is in
of this
relation to purpose.
so the with the accomplishments of this person being the first, using vague terms is not helpful. It diminishes what this person accomplished. Yes, in the context of this
How?
article, what this person did. How? How? Because being the first female non-kicker to participate in a college football game is a huge deal.
So
Huge
is being
deal.
the first woman.
No,
Would you
not
not
really.
feel if a cis woman?
No, not
Okay.
really. No, it's not.
I mean,
So
we can disagree. We can disagree on this, right?
transgender people participate in
Their
sports
opinion.
all the time. It's something that's accepted in society now.
Trans women clearly didn't do that thing.
So now it's clear because I had to do research to figure it out.
No. Trans women, you don't, right? If you say they're the first woman to do this, then it's
Mhm.
necessary from that that trans women previously had not done it. That's extraordinarily clear.
I would say it's a different thing if a trans woman and a cis woman did
I
this
agree
thing
that it's
versus
different, but it's also different if a 6 foot woman versus a 4 foot woman does it. It's also
correct.
different if a severely disabled woman does it or a able-bodied person does it. It's also a
Mhm.
very different thing, right? If an extremely rich person woman or a very poor woman does it, right? There are lots of
Yes,
distinctions that we could make. There are lots of distinctions that we could make, right? But
correct.
they were trying to communicate just the distinction that they were a woman and not a man. So they succeeded in communicating what they wanted. I don't see an issue here. You
They
think that
succeeded
they
at being
needed, in
vague.
order for you to care for them, they needed
No,
to
to
discount
understand
trans
what they were
people.
saying, to
But no,
understand
no,
what
what did you
happened.
not understand? What did you not understand?
I did not understand what happened until I researched it and figured it out.
Okay, so if I don't say that they are a 5'7" woman, did you not understand what happened?
In the context of the situation, that's irrelevant information.
It's irrelevant their height.
Yes,
You don't think that it would be relevant if they were 4 foot?
they were 5'6", 145
But okay, but
pounds.
you don't think. But did it say that? Do you think it would be
Yes,
relevant if they were four?
it's
Do you think it would
it
be
said
relevant
that.
if they were 4 foot?
What was that? Yeah, it would be relevant if
Do
they're
you think
four
it would
foot.
be? Do you think it would be relevant if they were 4 foot?
Yes.
Great, but you just seeing woman didn't know that they were 4 foot or not.
No, but in the article
But
they
it would
said
be
their height and
relevant, and
weight.
I.
They,
But you understood.
they
Oh, it
use all
also
this.
added the height.
No, I didn't. But what you're saying, what you don't understand is, I did not understand the gravity of the situation. I did not understand what actually happened because
You
they use
understood what
vague
actually happened. A
terms.
woman did this thing.
A female
That actually
did
happened.
this.
You understood that.
A cis woman did this thing. If you want to use precise terms,
This is a totally arbitrary bar of linguistics that you're holding up right now. Totally
okay.
arbitrary.
I'm just saying. In order for me to find out what actually happened, the details
What
of
do you
what
mean what
happened.
actually happened? If I
Yes,
say a
what happened?
blonde-haired Look, if I say a blonde-haired person did this thing, right? You
Yep.
understand what I'm communicating to you. We can't communicate every detail in every context, right? So you're
Yes.
complaining that they're leaving out whether they're cis or trans. Complain more. It
Yes.
doesn't matter. There are hundreds of.
It's not a complaint. It's just a situation I ran into today. I wasn't like,
Yeah, but
oh my god,
it's
I can't
not an
believe I had
issue.
to do
It's a
this,
non-issue. Like it's an entire non-issue because
because
right
what? Because
because
they're
we have
equal and they're the
hundreds.
same and there's no difference.
No, that's not what I said. They are equal. They're
Then
not
why
the
is it a
same, and there is a
non-issue? Then why
difference.
is it a non-issue?
It's a non-issue because they can be different in hundreds of ways, but they don't have to include every conceivable difference
Well,
in that
in the
statement.
world of sports, there's big differences
I
between
think I think
cis
there are
men, cis
bigger
women,
differences that could be
men,
made.
and then and trans women and trans men. There's differences.
Yeah, but there are
There are
also
differences.
differences between. Repeat it again. Do you want to repeat it again to make yourself feel better?
No, I'm pretty sure you heard me.
Yeah, the third
In the
time
context of sports.
I heard you all 3 times.
Okay, so it's not
Do you
irrelevant.
think that I'm saying that trans and cis people are the same?
I that trans cis people are the same. I'm saying if you believe that
No, no,
trans
answer my question.
women, yes,
No,
and
no,
yes,
answer
yes,
my question.
yes, yes.
You think that I'm saying I think they're the same? No, I'm not. I already answered that. Right? You're either lying or like deaf.
I mean, if you refer to them as the same word, then they're the same.
That's not true.
They're grouped into the same category.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean they're the same.
Okay, and so they're not the same. So, in the context of what I described, is details are important. That's why they
I
said how
agree, but you didn't
tall this
engage in
person
the
was.
question.
Was that?
Did they say if they were doping?
No, they don't know if they're doping. They
Did
might
they
be.
say if they had a functioning heart?
It's assumed that they have a functioning heart. They're in college
Okay,
sports.
did it well, not necessarily. I mean, plenty of people have heart defects that engage in college sports. Did it say if they had any lung conditions?
No.
No, great. But I think if someone had a lung condition, right, and was the first to play in the NFL as a non-kicker, that would
Yeah.
be incredible.
So
But
the
they didn't
absence
do
of that
that, and
information.
they didn't engage in that, right? Because they
Yes.
chose what information to communicate, and they communicated the information they meant to.
Bec-
There was no
Yes, they
mistake
did.
in
They
no.
chose.
The
Yes,
thing
they're correct.
is there was yes, exactly. So if someone is trying to communicate information to you and they succeed in their communication, there is no issue. You are
Okay.
not pointing out an issue. You are setting an entirely arbitrary bar, right, for
Okay.
context that you don't set for anything else.
What do you mean? What do you mean? You don't set that for anything else? So it's okay to just. It is okay if that's the information they wanted to vaguely describe a situation that happened, and that's what their intent was, and they did it. They succeeded. I wasn't satisfied with the information they gave me, so I went to other sources. That I went to other sources, and they pretty much reported it the same way. So I had to research this individual and to find out more about them. It's fine.
Yeah, great. There's no issue here. You wanted more information, so you looked and found it.
Yes.
Congrats.
And the social construct of gender has not changed.
I mean, I just think you're wrong. I've told you why I think you're wrong. Uh,
Yes.
I don't know where else to. You can repeat your incorrect statement if you'd like. It doesn't make it more correct.
I
You
mean, and you
seem to
can
have
repeat.
conceded. You seem to have conceded on the relevant points, which is that they can properly be understood as men. Um, and it's hard to bifurcate the
It's
actual social construct and the linguistic social construct. I think one's an aspect of the other. And I'd say if we can understand the linguistic social construct to have changed, then we can equally understood the actual in totality social construct to have changed. I think that's perfectly acceptable.
I would say eventually. I say maybe that's the first step, but as of right now, the second step hasn't happened, and the social construct of gender has not changed. And I would say that me understanding what you believe as is not the same as me accepting that what you believe, or
That's not
society
my
for that matter.
argument. So I mean, so I agree. But that doesn't. It's not relevant, is it?
I'm saying I can look at two basketballs and a brown ball, two orange basketballs and then a brown ball, and say, look at that rock, and you look over and you know which one I am referring to as a rock. Doesn't make that brown basketball rock, but you understood what
Great.
I meant. So
Yeah, and how we would distinguish that, right, as a mistake by comparison to something else, right, is because most English speakers, right, would require added context for that, whereas most English speakers would not require added context for trans people.
I would say most English speakers would know exactly which ball I was referring to as a rock. And by your example of
Really? I mean,
the transgender man,
if there were four balls in a row, would they know which one you're referring to as a rock? No.
if three of them were orange and one was brown, yes.
Yeah, it's a rock. Wait, yeah, that's just a what is that called? It's a synecdoche. It's a figure of speech.
Okay.
And I'd say figure of speech, like
You,
figurative definitions are
uh,
valid. In
um,
that sense, it is a rock, right? It's just an extension of the understanding of rock. That's fine. I wouldn't say, oh, you're wrong, that's not a rock, because I know what you mean. Yeah. We may have lost connection, but we were kind of finishing up anyway. So I appreciate you. Keep on sending likes, follows, everyone. And let's keep moving. Hello.
Hello,
How old are you?
I'm 40.
Wonderful. What would you send a guest request to disagree on?
Um, I don't think I think gender and sex are synonymous
On what basis?
on the basis that prior to John Money in the 1950s coining that ideology, they were synonymous.
So do you think
Also,
language
if there
changes?
are also if there are no finite characteristics to a specific gender, they have no meaning.
I disagree with that, but let's go with your first contention. Um, can language change?
Yes.
Okay, so the fact that that language was a certain way in the past, does that necessarily mean that it is that way now?
No.
Then your argument doesn't hold.
Well, it
So
does
moving
because
on
when we're
to, but
talking
it doesn't
about
though, because when we're talking about language and changing, we don't reference
because
history, we reference the current state.
we're not talking about linguistics as much as we're talking about measurable scientific biology.
Wait, we were talking about the
The
linguistics of that
definition of your
biology.
hand doesn't change.
Absolutely, it does.
It does.
Yeah, if society changed their understanding of what a hand was, the definition would change.
So, what is the characteristic one must have to identify as female?
No one identifies as female.
Oh, as a
And if they
woman?
do, right, I'd say they're linguistic. As a woman,
Yeah. What characteristic do I have to identify as a woman?
right, so I'd say there are multiple valid understandings of the term
No,
woman,
no.
and
What's
one
one
of which
characteristic? That's not my question. My question is, what's one characteristic I have to identify as a woman?
I don't think there's any singular necessary quality.
Exactly.
I think, wait, but there are lots of things that don't have singular necessary qualities. There just can be multiple sufficient qualities.
Name one characteristic I have
You
in
can
order to identify as a
ask the
woman.
Steven Crowder question again, right? Like it
Who's
doesn't make
Steven
it more
Crowder?
correct. Okay. I mean, the audience will understand the reference. The point
Can you answer my question?
there
You're saying that there isn't a characteristic I have, right?
no. I said
So
that
if
there
I can
wasn't a
say
singular.
if when I say the word
Okay.
hammer, if a hammer if I when I say the word hammer, it could be a blade of grass or an Oreo or a
No, you
refrigerator.
misunderstand the point
Does the
because you
word
don't let me
hammer
make the
have any
point.
meaning anymore? No.
Wait, so this is fascinating. So, the term dusting, right? So the term dusting can either mean to put on dust or to take off, like dust type things. What's a single quality that I must have in order to have dusted?
In order to have dusted,
Nothing.
yes,
Yep.
there is. If you have
What?
dusted, that means you've manipulated dust.
Wonderful. So there are just plenty of antonyms that look like this. So there's I don't know. Let's think of other antonyms. Or contronyms. I'm gonna
This
look
is a
up examples
simple
of contronyms.
logical issue, which is, well, for one, if people are born transgender and gender is an ever changing social construct, how could I be born transgender? How could I be born with a social construct? That makes no sense.
It does. Um,
Explain that to me. So, if social constructs change throughout time and they're dependent on the location in which you live, how can someone in utero have a social construct before being a part of
oh,
society?
yeah. So that would be you are born with a natural proclivity to identify or adhere to a certain category or to have the conditions that categorize you socially.
So in utero, I'd have a desire to wear makeup.
No, that's not what I said.
So what is a social construct?
So do you just simply not understand what a social construct is?
Social construct is society creating something. How can I
Yep.
have a
So
social
do you not
construct?
think that social constructs could be
How can I have
referential
a
to
social
bio?
construct prior to being a
Okay.
part of society?
I'm not saying that you are.
You can't,
Did you
right?
hear did you hear what I said?
If you're not aligning the logic, no.
Okay, cool. Then I'll say it again and see if you can hear me. The way that we say people are born transgender, you have to go outside the absolutely unjustified literal for a second. What we mean is that they're born with a natural proclivity to either have the characteristics or develop the characteristics that would identify themselves or qualify them within this social category.
Can you see how that doesn't make sense? Because let's say the social
I don't.
construct.
I actually, it makes incredibly large amounts of sense.
Will, you
I
gotta
don't know
let me
what's
have a. You
difficult
gotta let
about
me
it.
get to a period sometimes, bro.
Wait,
If we're
no, 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 Norm. No, no, no,
no,
no,
no,
Norm.
no,
You consistently interrupted me. You can't pretend to be the
well then
victim
don't
here, right?
reciprocate
When
it.
I also have. I don't have to be the bigger man here. Arguably, I shouldn't engage with
Because
you
we
at
can't
all when you
identify
came
what a
on here
man is.
interrupting me. I absolutely can identify what a man is. You consistently make false accusations and do not allow me to clarify and point out. And then you ignore the points that I do make. So engage with the point that I just made.
Resay your point.
For the third time,
Sure.
wonderful. So as I said, what we mean when we say, oh, they were born transgender or they were,
Who's we?
biologically are trans, I don't know.
Yeah.
The
Say
general, I'm just
I.
trying to understand. What?
Say I, because you are not a we.
I mean, I'm speaking for a general understanding.
There is no general understanding. You only speak for
General
you.
understanding.
You are
Anyway,
not a
let me finish
we.
the point, and then you
So
can be
say
pedantic
I,
about
and
it.
then you can go blah blah
I'm not.
blah.
Wait, no, no, no. We're not gonna engage in
You are
this. If
not.
you have a
You are not a
pedantic,
we. You are
I'm not
you.
suggesting I'm a we.
So stop saying we believe.
I'm not. Okay, there's one person in the comments that says I'm speaking for them as well. So
Okay.
when we say, like, this is, I'm gonna engage with pedantry pedantically. Um, so like the general understanding when one says, um, that they were born transgender or this person was born transgender. They mean it in a similar way as this person was a natural born leader, right? Leader obviously is a set of
No.
characteristics you actually. I mean, let me
No.
finish, Norm.
That is totally
Okay.
different because
Well, I
you're
mean, I haven't finished my
qualifying.
point.
Well,
I haven't finished my point, Norm.
that is
So
not
you're gonna
analogous
let me
at
wait, you
all.
Norm. So I mean, I haven't made the analogy
Well,
properly yet.
that
So
start. You said that
you
that's
don't
analogous
even
to being
know
a
you don't even
leader.
know what analogy I'm actually holding,
You're
Norm, because I didn't
analogizing
explain.
gender with leadership.
And I can
That is not
analogize anything I
analogous at
want with.
all.
Wait, but I can analogize anything I want with anything I want as long as I
Not
point to a
outside of
characteristic
logic.
that's similar.
Not outside of
You
reason
don't
and
understand. I
logic.
haven't set out a logical proposition
You
yet,
have. You've
Norm.
associated leadership with gender.
Yeah, but you don't know in what way I associated
Well,
it.
in any way, they're not the same.
I'm not saying they're the same. I'm saying they're similar in one characteristic.
They're not. Okay, okay. Okay, go ahead. Tell me the similarity.
That's what an analogy is. And I'm trying to explain to you, right, a complex concept, and you absolutely and utterly
You
refuse
are
to
not getting the
understand it.
basic, simple logic of this
I haven't
concept.
been able to get to any
Well,
basic
quit
simple
complaining
logic,
about it and
Norm.
start getting to it.
I'm not. I'm
Stop
attempting
complaining.
to,
Start talking.
right? I continuously talk, right? And you've interrupted me 4 times on my
Start
third
talking about it. Quit
reiteration of it.
complaining about it. Let's
So
go.
as I was saying, Norm, what we mean when we say that a person was born transgender, right, was born to be transgender, is that they would have a natural or biological proclivity to have the characteristics socially or biologically that would categorize them within this social category.
So if that social category changes, and let's say in 100 years, men are wearing makeup and high heels and dresses, are they no longer transgender being born 100 years from now?
Yeah, you would no longer have that natural well, you would have the same natural proclivity, but it would not have the same conclusion.
Perfect. So
Absolutely.
now you've acquiesced that gender is associated with finite characteristics such as gender expression, such as makeup, dresses, high heels, physical things that we can see. You're aligning those things with gender, a social construct, right?
Did I do
But at the
that?
same time, you're hypocritical in saying, well, you don't have
Did
to
I
have
do
any of
that?
those things to
Did I
be.
do that,
You,
Norm? Wait,
you
no,
don't
I'm
have to
gonna
have.
stop
At
you
the
at
same time,
that
you're saying
lie.
we don't have to
Did
have
I
any
do
of
that,
those
Norm?
things
Did I say
to
that it was
align
a
with a
did I
certain
say that it was a
gender.
finite?
Do you
Did
see
I
how
say
your
that it was a
logic
finite?
doesn't logic?
Did I associate it with a finite amount of
You
characteristics? You
did.
fail at first proposition.
You did. I said, well, what if in 100 years
How?
men are the ones wearing dresses and makeup and high heels? Are they no longer transgender? You said yes.
If that's the characteristics that are being associated with it,
Exactly.
which
So if
is,
there are no
and what have I said?
characteristics, if there
Wait,
are no
Norm, so you're
characteristics,
confused
then
again.
what are we aligning to?
I didn't say that there weren't any characteristics. What did I actually say, Norm?
Exactly what I'm referencing. You're saying
So
that there are
I
certain
didn't say that there were no
characteristics aligned
characteristics.
with
What did I
gender.
actually say?
That's
I said that
exactly
there were
what you
no
said. That's why this makes no sense.
this is fascinating. It makes no
This is
sense
why
because
this
you're
makes
not
no sense
interested.
is you
It doesn't
cannot
make
be
any sense because you're
born
not interested in
you cannot
understanding
be
it.
born with a social construct. You cannot have a construction of society prior to being a part of society. Social constructs change throughout time. Why is it that nobody is born with the social construct of 16th century China?
So we're not saying you're born with the social construct.
Okay, so you're not born transgender because gender is a social construct.
That's fascinating. So we're
No,
not
can you
saying
can you have any integrity in this conversation? If gender is a social
so
construct, you
it's
cannot be
quite a
born
strong
transgender.
it's quite a strong word to call this a conversation, Norm. What I said was we are not saying you are born with a social construct. That's nonsense, isn't it?
Yes.
What we're saying is that you're born such that you would fall into the category created by the social construct.
How? How do you have biologicals adapted to you that say, I like high heels, or I like pants, or I like dresses?
I mean, there are a huge amount of things that we could point
No,
to,
there's
but
no
this is really
biology to
simple to
that. There's no
understand.
biology to a current social construct.
I mean, absolutely there is.
Oh my
We can
God.
go
No,
down.
there isn't. There's not a gene that says, oh, this guy has the gene of liking pants.
You're looking at this in incredibly simplistic ways, right? But the
Dude, you are
understandings of
pedophogging this.
masculinity.
You know that you're wrong and you're pedophogging the hell out of this. You know there's no biological gene or anything measurable that says you like a dress or you like a pant or you like a high heel or you like
Norm, are you
makeup or
interested in
anything.
having a two-way discussion?
Well, not if you're
Then
unwilling to
stop
be
interrupting
honest.
me.
Not
I know
if you're unwilling to be honest
you're
in this
going to think that I'm
conversation.
bad faith point blank period,
You
right?
are you
So
you are you
pretend
know that what I'm saying is correct. You know there's no
no,
biology
Norm,
to
you're
gender
incorrect. There
identity.
is
You
so
know
first
there's
of
no
all there is
biology
okay,
to
Norm.
gender
Norm,
expression. You
you have
know that.
nothing
And you're
you're adding
unwilling
nothing
to agree
valuable to
to it
this.
because it's
Okay.
futile
Do you
to
want
your
to restate
point.
your claim again? Continue restating
If
your claim.
what I've realized in this conversation is that you're an ideologue. You will not change your mind, even if put in the blatant fact
Okay,
of
if you're
a
not going to change my mind, you can
hypocrisy.
leave. But
You are
if you
unwilling.
want to restate your claim again, you're free to.
If I have to that gender is synonymous with sex, the first person to edify
Wonderful.
that it wasn't was a
So,
man named John Money in the 1950s who thought you were born gender neutral. He was the first iteration of that concept. If gender has no finite characteristics, if it has no definition, no meaning or anything, it is entirely useless. If I could say a
great.
hammer is a fridge
Okay,
or a carrot.
great, Norm. I never said that it didn't have characteristics.
Yes, you
What I
did.
said was that didn't.
I wish there was a playback where I could show you every contradiction in
There
this
is.
conversation you've
I have
made.
access to all of these. I
And I'm
have
sure
access to
you'd be
all of
so
these
willing to
lives.
expose yourself.
Norm, can
That's
you
the whole
stop speaking for
point.
2 seconds?
One, you're
Great.
obsessed with being offended,
What
I
I
think, is what it is. You're just wanting to be
You're the
offended.
one who's saying you're
This
the
is
one
your
who's angry in
defense
this live.
mechanism is I'm offended or I'm
It's
not
well,
willing to
I'm not
engage.
speaking, Norm. That's the thing. I can't even be offended because I barely speak. What I was saying is that there exists no singular necessary quality, right? We could debate that though. I would say, I mean, maybe I'll take that back and say a singular necessary quality of being a woman is being a human. That's one singular necessary quality, right? Another singular necessary quality is at least at one point having been conscious. That's another singular necessary quality.
No,
That's
single
fine. Does
cells
that
have consciousness. They're not human.
single
Single cells have
don't
consciousness.
no they don't.
Yes, they 100,000 million% do. If you believe
How
in
would you define
evolution, in fact, you have to
consciousness?
believe that.
Why?
Well, then you don't know what evolution is.
I feel like I do.
A
So in what way do
5-second
single cells
search
have
of are single cells conscious will tell you. Do
define
you have a
conscious?
computer in front of you?
Yeah, I do.
Google are single cells conscious.
NIH. Sentience and consciousness in single cells, how the first minds emerged in unicellular species.
Oh,
A
maybe
reductionist
I'm a liar.
a reductionist bottom-up view, a reductionist bottom-up cellular-based concept of the origins of sentience and consciousness has been put forward. So it's calling your view reductionist and bottom-up.
No, we're talking
Um,
about when it's using the word reductionist, it's talking about at our basis elements, which would be single cells. That's reductionist. But Will, I'm sure you have a
reductionist
lot of beating off
derogatory.
in front of the mirror to do, so I'll let you get back to it. And you're totally right about everything you've said. Totally right. Stay with it.
Thank you, 40-year-old telling a 19-year-old to beat off in front of a mirror. Seems appropriate, Norm. Anyway, great. If you disagree with me, send a guest request. We can debate a whole slew of things. Um, we can debate this, or this, or this, or this, or this. All holds up here. But send a guest request if you disagree with me. To follow my YouTube. It is my links in my bio of my YouTube, and that would be just fantastic to see y'all follow my YouTube because TikTok's not the biggest fan of me. Great, so we have a next. Oh, wonderful. Well, keep on sending guest requests if you disagree with me. I just would love to get a good live going. I disagree with that. I totally disagree with that one. Okay, so if you disagree with any of them, you can disagree with this or this. This. I don't really want to debate this one, so I'll do this one. But I am still in the UK. It is also 3:30. Why am I so fancy? I don't know. I was why I put this on just because I wanted to look nice, as one does. Yeah, I mean, everyone with a single brain knows that you need a brain to be conscious. Um, Unfortunately, the people I debate tend to not have that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I put it on. I did go on the line on YouTube. So I was on a talk show or like a call-in show earlier, which was really lovely. Let's see. Yeah, I was. That was really great.
Yes, the king.
Hi.
The
Hello.
king. What are you doing?
I'm doing real well. How about you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Besides you, all your viewers like calling me a piece of shit, and since
Wonderful.
last
Let's
time.
use TikTok-friendly language, just because
Pardon
TikTok isn't a
you.
fan of me or probably you. Well, what'd you send a guest request to disagree with? Yeah.
Let's go body count.
Do we want to do body count? Great.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Why do you think body count matters?
For women and not men.
Okay, make it more sexist. So why do you think body count matters for women and not men?
Not as much. Sorry, not as much. Because
Why does it matter at all?
why?
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, like, would you be with someone that's got 100 bodies, but you've only got 10?
I mean, I'm currently with someone who has like, or I've been with people that have very high body counts. Totally comfortable with it.
Comfortable in the relationship?
Yep.
Really?
Yep. I'd actually be much less comfortable, right? If there was any mattering of body count, I don't see why it would go in that way. If anything, people's lack of experience, right, would, kind of worry me, in that I might be monopolizing their life much more. So,
So you'd be less
and even
insecure.
then,
So you'd be less insecure if your partner had a high body count.
look, I think if I'm insecure, I'm insecure, right? That's on me to heal and grow. It's not on
Yeah.
my partner to exist such that I'm not insecure. Would I want my partner to be uglier so I'm not insecure? No. Would I want my partner to be dumber so I'm not insecure? No. And yet these are actions and tendencies that, male mating patterns actually do show, is that when they have a partner, they tend to want to reduce their achievements, reduce their intellect, and reduce the beauty that they show outside to other people. There's absolutely the same tendencies, and I think this is a
That's
similar
definitely not the
tendency.
case at all.
It is, I mean, it's just well proven and well documented
Yeah,
that male
well proven,
partners
and
try
that's
to
why you got
reduce their
yeah,
female partners.
yeah. That's why you got like chicks that go out like dressed like sluts every single Friday, Saturday night, just saying to their boys, "Oh yeah, I've got a girls' night. I'm just hanging out with the girls."
Once again,
They're
let's use
completely
TikTok
wild.
friendly language. Let's not use like, that word. This is just TikTok, not for me. I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
Sorry.
great, cool. Men still have that tendency, and the reason that you get offended that they're going out wearing those things, right?
I
Whereas,
don't care.
yeah, but the reason you call them, I mean, derogatory terms for saying such things, or you engage in a culture that does shame them for it, is because, in part, this view, right, that women should reduce themselves so that men feel less insecure, so that women getting other male attention is immediately a threat to one's own masculinity. And if something is a threat to masculinity, necessarily, then in your view, is a threat to your relationship, which just doesn't actually hold.
That's great.
Yeah, so body count doesn't matter in the same way that my partner being extremely attractive and me being insecure about it doesn't matter, right?
No, it doesn't.
It's a bad proclivity that we should work against because it's significant of a toxic masculine culture.
So you'd let your partner like wear anything she wants out?
I mean, I hope I don't have a she partner, but were I ever into women,
Are you gay?
I am a gay man.
Oh yeah. I think I'm pretty sure I've asked you that before. Yeah, no, that's all right. So you'd be happy with him like wearing like no shirt to like a rave and that?
They have, like, what? Yeah, of course. Their
True, I
body is
guess.
not my body.
True. What?
Also, this doesn't have to do with body count, right? So, like, level of sexuality that's acceptable of a partner, right, within a private relationship is totally different than judging someone for their previous sexual actions,
Yeah, but if
right?
if a chick has 150 bodies and she comes up and says I'm the one, and I know she's got 150 bodies, she's probably said that to 150 before me. As in, where if a bloke's had 150 bodies and he wants to actually, I don't know, and if he was to say that, oh yeah, she's the one, I'd definitely put all my money on the man to come out on top of that. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't, for a chick to come up and say, like,
You
I'm the
don't think
one.
that men are capable of emotional manipulation as well?
I don't think I would be, no, not in any sense.
No, that wasn't the question.
Well, I'm not going to generalise and speak for someone else. It's my
But
opinion.
but you're very happy to generalize when it benefits your point.
But I'm not saying we. I'm just saying me, as in like I.
No, but you are generalizing too. If men did this, if women did this. So that is a generalization.
Yeah, of
So
like
you're
young
happy to
teens that go out.
generalize, right? Which I also disagree, right? Like
If young people that
in
go out,
my experience with men, it's much harder for to get women to say, "Oh, he's the one," than to get men to say, "Oh, she's the one," right? Like from my experience, by and large, men are much more gullible and fall quicker and harder than women do. It's
oh,
just
that's
a lie to
unfortunate.
suggest it.
Well, that's unfortunate. That's
It
terrible.
seems to be the truth, though.
That's disgusting. That's
What's
nonsense.
disgusting? What's nonsense?
That men fall quicker than females. No chance.
You don't think so?
There probably is studies that are like on Simpson shit, but I don't think any like normal person would actually. Nah, no way. Maybe like if it was
I
on
mean, we can
Simpson.
go into it, but once again, we're just going off generalizations. You're not
Mhm.
actually telling me why body count matters. Just that it hurts your fifis. Sorry, be
No,
better.
it doesn't.
Like, get good. If it hurts your
What are you
fifis that
saying?
if it hurts your fifis that they've been more successful than you, get good. Um,
I am
why
good.
else would
I
it
don't
matter?
need
Why
to
would it
talk about
affect the quality of whomever you're dating?
why.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, there's no actual way known that anyone in their right mind would consider actually dating and wiping someone up with a body count of like 100 plus, even 50 plus. That's crazy.
You know what's funny is by and large, the most attractive thing for someone to have is experience, right? Realize that, I mean, there have been mating studies done, and they found that some of the most attractive, right, qualities is number one for someone to have a partner, and number two for someone to talk about their experience in the past. I'm not saying that's good. Let me just be very, very clear. Right? I'm not saying that's good, but there have been studies showing that when we say, okay, this woman currently has a partner and has had previous boyfriends X, X, and X, and this woman doesn't, right? Well, the men value this woman more that's a virgin because of sociological things. They're actually attracted to the woman with experience more. That seems to be
No,
what the
they're
studies
not.
show. They are. I mean, we can pull up the peer-reviewed evidence that look into this. But when we look at dating preferences, that is what they show. Is you're going to shame them, but equally you're going to be more attracted to them, right? Due to competitive natures of this forum.
I just don't like virgins because of like the cleaning up and shit. Really, that's the hard part. Like, yeah, I don't know.
The what?
The cleaning up.
You realize that you can like take someone's virginity without like, you know,
Popping their
causing a
cherry.
blood issue. Yeah.
Popping their cherry.
This is
It
this
does
is like
happen.
just
It
get
happens
good part two.
happens like 8 times out of 10 though.
Yeah, just like part 10 of just like get good.
Yeah,
It's
we can say
entirely
that.
avoidable. It's 100% avoidable.
It's not.
It is.
All right. So you're definitely just wasting my time here.
It's fascinating. I think you're the one arguing that something that doesn't matter
I'd like you to jump
does,
out of the
just because
box.
just because your fifis get hurt when women do better than you in dating.
Are
Sorry.
you?
I think
Are
that's
you
the
shitting
actual
yourself?
reason is you're
Are you
challenged
shitting yourself?
because women are more successful in dating than you are.
Oh, that
And
is
you don't want to
definitely
be
not the case.
reminded of that
And
fact.
why? What do you mean? That's like just ideological to even say that. Of course, women are going to be more successful than any male in dating. What are you saying, mate?
Yeah, and your little fifis get hurt by that.
Wait, why would they get hurt if I already know that that's how it works and that's how it goes? Like, I would clearly accept that. That doesn't. My feelings aren't
Because I
hurt.
think you have a
That's
deep insecurity
moronic to say that.
because
That is
you're
moronic to say that.
consistent because you are consistently reinforced by society that your value comes from your ability to court women. So their ability
No,
to court men, right, equivalently is challenging to you.
it's definitely not challenging in a nightclub at all. But I'll actually rather fight them off than fucking actually take them home. It's actually way funner. So
funner.
Yeah, way funner. Heaps more
The
entertaining.
words of the high intellectual. But yeah, I don't I don't understand why y'all care about body count. Once again, if anything, it's a positive because, it'll just be more enjoyable.
Mate, I don't want my missus like vagina to look like it's been hit with a gas axe, like
Do you
before
want
it's
to
been
have
with me.
children?
Huh?
Do you want to have children?
Not in this world, no. Definitely not.
Not in this world, no.
No way. Why would I bring a kid into this world? It's
Wonderful.
fucked.
Great. But do you think that a woman having like a child is good? Is a good thing?
What?
Do you think that a woman having a child is like a good thing? Is a good thing to do?
Well, it depends. That's such a strange question. Yeah,
I
it's
ask
good for
because have you seen what birth does to those?
Yeah, that's why you get a cesarean.
I mean, cesarean does horrid things to the rest of them. But I do find it weird because they claim this, right? Because so a lot of right-wing, like red pillars like yourself, will claim two sides of this. You'll say, well, I don't want their vulva, is really what you're talking about, to look strange, which it doesn't.
Yeah.
When
It gets sewed up though.
doesn't, like it doesn't
Yes,
really
it
work
does.
that. It doesn't really. But the thing is it doesn't really get worse, right? As they have more intercourse, right? It doesn't actually, and this doesn't actually follow either. Like, it's not about the look of it because even if it did look worse, the more intercourse that they had, right?
Yeah.
Bodies wouldn't account for this. One extremely active longtime partner would do the exact same thing. So it's not about bodies.
No,
You understand that, right?
no.
And
No,
then
no,
so
no, no,
so
no, no,
both,
no.
there's both that point, but then there's also the other thing, right? Which is that y'all also actively think that women should be in the household, should be taking care of children, view women's purpose within society as taking care of children,
No,
which
definitely
is
not.
going to be one of the largest, possibilities of messing up the aesthetic quality of a vulva, which is strange. So not only does your point not actually make any sense, right? Because
What are
body
you
count has a
saying?
next.
Yes, mate. I don't care if you put 150 different blokes through a body, through a chick, bro. I promise you that is not going to look the same as from scratch. I'll put money on it. Go watch the video. Go watch the video of the chick that
I think
breaks
it'll
the
look
world
about. I
record.
think it'll look
Wait.
about the same as one guy doing it 150 times.
No. If you go watch the video of the chick that broke the world record for most penises inside her in a day, which is like 982 or something, and you go tell me if that looks the same from the start.
I don't doubt that it would change like in one day, right? But the question is whether it will like
982
return to
people.
what it looks like, which it does. What?
982 in a day, and you reckon it's not gonna? What, you reckon it's gonna look the same?
In about a month, yeah.
Jesus.
I mean, look. The thing is
No one
things.
but no one actually wants anyone with a high body count. Men just
I mean,
desire
I
a
def.
little bit more.
I mean, I can tell you what my preference is, right? I wouldn't prefer people with a lower body count. Like, I think it would be a very rare case that I date a virgin. But also I just disagree. I mean, men have consistently shown attraction to women with experience. That's just what the dating shows. So it's very strange that red pillars are pushing this absolutely false narrative regarding
Or do
body
like
count,
they go,
because it's
or
just
do
not
like
true.
the men, or do like the men like in school and shit like go for it because they know she's easy, or
No, like independent peer review data that looks at the several qualities that people find attractive and prefer, right? Like a great example is dating app data. So we can look at a several huge amount of characteristics.
Hmm.
And if a dating app indicates that they had had a previous partner or had multiple previous partners, they're more likely to get matches.
Oh my god, that is an awesome comment. Oh, Will, I'll let you go then.
Wonderful. I appreciate you coming up.
Hello.
Hello. What'd you send a guest request to disagree on?
So, me and you have talked before, Will. I don't know
Oh,
if you
great.
remember me, but we were talking about the trans stuff and whatnot, and that's not what I want to discuss today because that was just terrible. But body count doesn't matter. Let me ask you a question, Will. Who do you think has a
Oh,
higher?
can't see or hear you.
Who do you think has a higher risk of STDs or STIs? Someone with 2 body counts or someone with 50?
That's fascinating. Who do you think has a higher rate of
Okay.
HIV?
Can you answer my
A black
question?
or a white person?
Will,
A
can you
person
answer my
with 50
question?
body counts. A person with 50 body counts.
Will, can you answer my question,
Who do you
please?
think has a higher? Yeah, I answered you. And let me ask
Yeah,
you a question in response. Who do you think has a higher rate of HIV? A black or a white person?
I didn't get your. I'll answer that question, but can you answer my
I said
question?
50. The answer is
50.
I
Okay,
said
so
50. I answered it
50.
3
All right, so
times.
50.
So
Let's continue
answer
from
my
there.
question.
Let's continue from there. 50.
Answer my question. You said you would answer my question. Answer my question.
What's your question?
I said it 2 times. Did you not hear me?
Someone or you said someone who has more HIV, someone who's black or someone who's white.
Yep.
Someone the data says that is someone who's black, right?
Yeah, okay.
And
Does that change? Does that mean that black people are lower quality partners?
well, no, because it's
No, great. Then it doesn't matter in body count.
wait,
See
hold
how
on,
that
Will.
works?
But hold on a moment. If someone black people don't have a higher HIV rate or STD rate
They do.
because they're black. Wait, can you let me finish? I was going to finish it, but you cut me off. Black people don't have higher HIV rates because they're black. Would you agree with that? Is that something radical?
I think it depends how you argue it. What you mean by that?
Will,
I would say
be careful.
so.
I'm recording this, Will.
If we
I'm
understand
recording this. Be
blackness,
careful.
if we understand blackness within a social context rather than a very literal, like biological context, I would say, in fact, right, the marginalization of that race is what causes it. So in fact, them being black, right, is what causes them to have higher rates
But
of
is that the inherent cause of
HIV.
higher HIV rates in the black community?
Inherent, no.
Okay,
Societal,
good.
yes,
Well,
but
then
race
amazing.
is
Good.
societal.
Good. So black people don't have higher HIV rates because of the fact that they're black. They have it because of other reasons, economic factors, poverty, all of that stuff, which correlates with this, which correlates with race. That's number one.
But
Number two,
I would say that is in like this marginalization is fundamentally built into blackness. But I mean, I understand what you're saying. I just
but yeah,
disagree that you're representing it right. But like, it's fundamentally what blackness is. That's like blackness is marginalization, at least within the society in part.
okay, so then,
But once again, this isn't your argument. Your argument was just that they have higher rates
yeah,
of
you brought up
HIV
black people.
or
So,
higher rates of STD prevalence,
so okay,
right?
let me
Cool.
continue from there then. Let me continue from there, right? So someone who has 50 bodies has a higher rate of HIV as opposed to someone with 2. You've already said you agree with that.
Depends
So in that
depends
case,
what
it's very
bodies. That isn't ubiquitously
sexual
statistically
bodies,
true.
right? Yeah,
I mean,
sexual
no.
partners.
So a black poor MSM, right? It has
What
a
is
higher
MSM?
rate of men who have sex with men.
Huh? Men, what did you
Men
say?
who have intercourse with men.
Just say gay people. I don't know why but yeah, continue.
I mean, gay people is imprecise because WSW, the statistics are not the same for.
But what we're saying is, though, people who have higher bodies, it's a correlation. I don't know if it's a causation, but they correlate with you have higher rates. You're more likely to get these diseases. That's number one. You've already agreed with that.
Yeah, but there's a really easy way to answer this, right?
And what
If
is it?
before you become their partner, just have them tested. Crazy.
Okay, so what if I don't want to spend? How much do these tests typically cost? Right? If we want to hold on, wait.
Where
If
do
we
you
want to
live?
look at,
What country? What country do
I
you live
live
in?
in I live in Kansas. I live in the U.S. Kansas.
You live in Kansas? I mean, there are at least so where I live in North Carolina, there are free clinics.
North Carolina. Okay, there are free clinics. Okay, so
There,
would it be more
I can.
convenient?
If you tell me the
Hold
city you
on,
live in, I'll find a free
wait.
clinic in your city. I swear to God, there is a free clinic that can get you
So
tested
if
for free within 2 weeks,
I'm sure
in
there are. I'm sure
Kansas.
there are. I'm not denying you. I'm sure there
So
are.
it's free.
And it's great, and it's amazing. They should exist. We need more of them, right? So the thing is, though, we just say most people would say, oh, if my if my partner told me or potential partner told me they had 50 sexual partners, would it be easier for me to say, you know what, I want to avoid these diseases, and so it's much convenient for me to say I'm just going to cut this off and be like, you go your way, I'll go my way, rather than going to a clinic, doing all that. Which one do you think is more convenient for people? Just cutting it off or saying, I don't want this?
I mean, depends how much you value the person.
Well, just for the normal person.
Oh, for the normal person, it would be
Yeah.
more convenient for them to get tested.
Really? You don't think it'd just be like, okay, and if this is a
If
big
it's your
concern of theirs,
partner, if it's
if
your
it's,
partner, yeah,
yeah,
of course. If it's your partner,
yeah.
yeah, of course it's more convenient for you to get tested than you break up with your partner.
Yeah, see, I mean, no, I mean, I would say before you got started, how about that? Before you guys get started, it's just the first date or whatnot, right?
If it's the first date, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's more, once again, it's still more convenient. If it's the first date, right? You say, okay, it's 50, it's I've had 50 bodies. And you say, "Oh, okay, cool. Like on our next date, which will be in 2 weeks anyway, right? Because that's how scheduling in the adult
Well,
world
wait. I
works."
personally like to have dates, day by day. So first day on the
I mean,
first,
that's your personal preference,
but
but is it
yeah,
more convenient?
continue.
Like the normal person doesn't do that. Like a lot of the times you go a month, you go 2 weeks, you go a week, right? It's just
No,
talking slowly, right? It
but yeah,
depends. The normal person doesn't do that. So
but
no,
continue. Well, yeah,
I
continue.
disagree. But further, I think what's fascinating about this is, okay, who's statistically more likely to have an STD or an STI? A man with 50 bodies or a woman with 50 bodies?
I, Now that I don't know. I don't. If I get it wrong, I don't want you to say.
Statistically, men exponentially more likely to have STDs. You know why? Because women get tested more.
Okay, so and so we need everyone to get tested more, right?
Yeah, so do
Right.
you believe that women body count matters equally in both men and women?
Equally in both. Well, I'll address that, but can we just continue on to this for a moment, right?
I'm
Because
just saying, well,
you're
but
skipping
you're not
this,
making your argument
but
well
I
enough,
think
so I'm
this
going to move to
STI
mine.
thing is very important.
I just want to know your position. So answer my question.
My position is a little more complicated, and that's a whole. And right after
So I'd
we
love to
finish this
understand
one,
one part of your position.
my position is that women specifically, we need to make sure that women are not going around and they're not whoring and doing all this stuff, right? That's
Wonderful.
just,
So
I
it
think we
is
need to
just
focus on this.
sexism. That's my point, is that the sexism doesn't actually hold up to scrutiny.
Okay,
When you actually talk about it, right,
yeah,
women who
but
are doing that, right, going around doing these things, are less dangerous than men doing it.
but I don't date men. It doesn't concern me, right? I date women, and I'm
I know,
focused.
but you are superimposing a rule upon all of society, not just the women that you would date, all women, right? You're
Uh,
saying that women point blank, period. So it's not just about who you would date, right? So we're talking about what is best for society, what is good for society, right? So what you're doing is you literally just have a sexist distinction. You
oh
don't
wow,
care
okay.
about danger, right? You don't care about danger because then you would not have this sexist distinction. It's not about danger because you're not shaming the people that are actually the most dangerous.
Okay, so what if I just look at it from my point of perspective, right? It's me and who I date, right? I don't care what other people do, right? What if I say that? What if I say the people I date, I would like them to have as low of a body count as possible? Would that be a
On what
morally wrong
basis?
position to take?
On what basis?
On the two, number one, it's just it's disgusting. No, actually, three reasons, right? And I'll say them and you can address them. Let me just address the 3 points. Number one, my religion doesn't, allow me to date women who are, whores. That's number one.
Don't use. Oh, wait, actually,
Oh,
use that. You know that I would appreciate if you don't do that on TikTok because of my
okay.
account.
Well, then what's a better word than for?
I understand what you're saying. You don't need to use vulgarity on here to describe it.
So,
Also, this is an intellectual debate anyway. You should at least
okay.
pretend to use intellectual terms.
Girls who are going out every night and getting ran through, it's icky. That's number two, right? It's really not. I
So
don't want to date
religion,
someone like that. Religion, yep,
religion,
and just preference, I guess you can say, right? I want to date people. I
religion,
would prefer
preference, and
virgins.
what's the third?
I would personally prefer virgins, right? But not many of them are available. That's number one. No, I mean, that's number two. Number three is health, STDs, all
Health.
these things. Yes. Can you address those
Great.
3
Health.
points for me, one by one?
Great. Do you have a okay, I'll reference the third one first. Do you have a
Okay.
preference for white
Which we
people?
were on? No.
Great. So it's not about health.
But it is. It's about health. I mean, you're bringing race into this, but we're not talking about race, right? We're talking
I
about,
am.
for example, but if you take away race and you just look at you combine all races and you say people of all races, someone who has, if you look at a group of white, black, Asian,
No, I know
Hispanic
I
males,
know your
all
point. I know
right,
your point.
right.
I'm
So
trying
let
to
me
make
make
my
my
point.
point.
I
Let me
no,
make
I
my
know
point.
you've already made your point 3 times. I
But
understand
you
that
haven't
you've
addressed
made
it.
it. You
You
don't
haven't
need.
addressed it.
I've addressed it. I've
You keep
addressed
going
it
back
because
to
you don't
race.
actually believe it. I've addressed it by showing the hypocrisy of it. You're not actually taking the most safe approach here,
You keep
right?
going back to race though, but I want to discuss
No, I
about the
know. I can
actual
bring up other
bypass.
examples. I can bring up other examples,
Okay,
right?
so
Do you
you
prefer?
said,
Do you prefer? 1 second. Do you prefer people from the south of America rather than the north of America?
oh, absolutely. I love people from the South. People from the South are
Yep, they have higher rates
fantastic.
of STIs.
Girls from the South are fantastic because they're not liberals.
Women
That's
from the
number
south
one.
have higher rates of STIs.
And my wife is personally also from the South, and she's phenomenal.
Women from the
That's number
south have
two.
higher rates of STIs. It's not about danger.
That's not true.
It
But
is.
the thing is, okay, even if it was true though, my wife is not, sleeping around. She hasn't been
No, I know.
sleeping
So we
around.
can talk about your wife
So
specifically, but let's talk about general preferences of you, right?
yes,
Of
yes, exactly.
you. So it's not about danger, right?
It
Because
is
once
about
again,
danger.
your preferences aren't actually matching onto danger.
But it is, right? Because what I'm saying is, people who have higher sexual partners, they generally have higher rates of getting this stuff,
But
right?
so do
They're more likely to
Southerners,
get this
so
stuff.
do black people, right? So do Southerners, so do black people, so do poorer people, right? But all of these
Yeah.
preferences you don't have. So
Well,
all of them are correlated. All of them are correlated, right? But you don't have these preferences because it's not about safety.
because
And
they don't involve
exponentially, and
sexual.
secondarily, you're running off like BS prejudices rather than just saying get tested.
But
Like the answer is just get tested. Or hear me out now. Hear me out now. Because you can get treated for all of these. Just go on PrEP if you're that worried. Go on PrEP and
what?
get
Go
tested
on
every
what
3 months and you'll
exactly?
be fine.
What is this?
Exactly. You don't care about danger.
Well, no, you said go on something. Go on what? What are you talking? I don't know what you're
PrEP.
talking about. It's just, I don't know what
Exactly.
that
You
is.
don't
But the
care
issue is
about
though.
danger. Yes, I know. If you actually cared about being safe from STIs, if this was really guiding, right, how you dated and your worldview, you would know what PrEP was.
What is it like?
You asked, so
Okay.
I'll answer. PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis, and this is mainly just an infomercial because y'all should look into getting on PrEP if you care about things like this. PrEP is a once daily pill typically taken for HIV prevention. So it prevents the transmission and infection of HIV at I think a 93% efficiency rate if I remember properly, but don't
That's
quote me
very
on
high.
that.
Yeah, that's very high.
Yes, it is.
And
It's
it's
very high. It's very
and
good.
it's great for people who wanna, who are more likely to sleep around and do all this stuff and to get on this, so they don't get it and
Yeah,
contract
but
it.
yeah, exactly. But as I've said, it's once again, you're not about protection. That is a miracle pill, right? That has saved hundreds and hundreds of lives from one of the most dangerous STIs.
But
And
what
you
you're
don't know
doing
about it.
is
So
you're wrong though,
I
Will.
don't really take your claims of safety seriously, when you're not doing even the most basic research into STI
But
safety
you're
and
wrong though,
protection.
Will. You're very wrong and here's how you're wrong because if I say you're making it look like it's morally wrong for me to say, listen, this person I'm dating, they have 50 sexual partners in their history. Oh, that's too much for me. I don't want to do that. You're saying that's morally wrong.
No, I'm saying your reasoning's flawed because you don't actually believe it in other cases.
Okay,
Right?
but
If I say, hey, I don't like you because you're blonde, and then you point to another blonde person, and I'm like, oh, I like them, right? Then I don't actually hate you because you're blonde. There's something else. So I'm just doing the exact same thing to your
But
logic.
why are you bringing
I'm saying
geographic?
you're saying I don't have a preference. You're saying I don't like this type of person because they are more dangerous,
But why
right?
are you
When
bringing
you don't
geographic?
actually hold that for other types of people that are more dangerous.
But why are you bringing geographical regions and race and all
You're
these
gonna
stuff?
bitch and moan about any given experience that I bring in because what the point is that you're a hypocrite, right?
No,
So I
you're a
need
hypocrite.
to bring in the point is that you're a hypocrite, so that I need to bring in other things to point out hypocrisy. There's no other way to point out hypocrisy other than to bring out comparable things.
But I
So
think when you say
I'm bringing comparable things so that you understand.
they're not comparable. We're talking about body counts, and you're bringing
They
up
are
something
comparable in
that
that the
completely.
comparison
What does
holds.
body counts have to do with where someone lives or their what we're discussing right now or their race
In
or
that
whatnot?
both can increase the risk of HIV and STIs.
And which one is more likely to do it?
I mean, actually, the
Yeah.
relationship between
So let me tell
relation.
you.
So after one body, right? The relationship between body count and STIs is much lower than the relationship between socioeconomic status and HIV and STIs.
Wait, say that again. Say that. Just say one. Just say that
So
part again.
after one body, the relationship between body count and STIs is much lower than the relationship between socioeconomic status and STIs.
So
So
you're saying
actually,
that.
race and socioeconomic status is going to have a bigger impact because surprise, right? Like lots of people, right, within poor socioeconomic statuses get HIV and STIs from their parents being passed down, not just from
I think
intercourse.
as most of them are sleeping around for money because they're poor. Which I don't hold them against them, right?
That's I
People
mean,
have
we
people
can
have
go
to do
into
what they
that
have to
is
do.
entirely wrong analysis on why this is happening.
Wait, you
It
don't think
primarily has to
prostitution is
be.
hold on. You don't think prostitution is higher in poor areas? You don't think?
It is, but that's not the reason
Oh,
for.
yep, yes. So you're
That's
wrong.
not
I'm
the
right.
reason for it.
But the issue is that you're actually being hypocritical because what you want to say is, listen, I want women to sleep around, but you're not attracted to
I didn't
women.
say that.
Why do you care about that stuff?
I didn't say I want women to
But
sleep
you think
around.
it's right for women to go ahead and sleep around in every single occasion they possibly can.
I don't. No, the thing is, I'm not going to shame them
Oh,
for
you
it. I
say you're
don't think it's
gay.
wrong.
Which one is it? Are you either attracted to women and you want them to sleep around and sleep with you, or are you gay? I mean, you have to pick one. You can't have your cake and eat it.
So I either have to wait. I either have to pick objectifying women and having my political goals be purely selfish, or I can be gay, I guess. What do you mean? Like,
But
I
you
don't
can't.
have to agree with you that my political goals are only benefiting me.
Okay, so right here, can you say that you want women to stop sleeping around less? Can you just say that right now?
You're asking me to say that I want women to stop sleeping around
You would
less.
prefer. You would think that you would
I
prefer.
would prefer if they stop sleeping around less.
Yes.
So the less that they stop sleeping around, the better.
Yes.
Yes. The less that women stop sleeping around, the better.
No. It's better for women to stop sleeping around. Say that.
Wait, no, I'm saying what you said. I don't think that it's better for them to like. This is
Why?
why I was confused.
But
The
why?
less that women stop sleeping around, the better.
Because you want me to. You think it's wrong for me to say I don't want to expose myself to irreverent. What is it called? Damages that are so terrible that I can't even. That there are no drugs to even stop them. They're like cancer. You know
As
that,
I
right?
said,
HIV is like cancer.
as I said, it's not about the danger. That's why I pointed
It
to
is
the
about the
several other
danger.
factors
Don't tell me.
that
No,
increase your.
it is
That's
about the
why I
danger.
said it's not about the danger because I pointed to several other factors that actually increase your danger much more than body count, and you didn't care,
So
right?
wait,
So it's not about the
wait. So
danger.
you're saying that a girl from the South, Alabama, for example, a great state, um, who has 2 body counts has more chances of getting HIV than a liberal woman who has a mustache in New York who has 150 bodies because, femininity, feminism. That's what you're saying. You think that woman from the South is more likely to get HIV.
Well, what I specifically pointed to was
Yeah.
socioeconomic status.
Yeah, and it's by regions, right? People from the South are just
Not
poor
solely.
because
So I can go into the regional correlations, but there is a correlation between region and socioeconomic status. So
absolutely, yes.
I think by you asking that question, you've illustrated that you don't understand how trends work, right? So it would depend individually on that other person's other thing. So it would depend on if this person in New York was wealthy or if this person in Alabama was poor. But absolutely, I mean, I would
Just in
say that a
general, just in
poorer
general. Someone they
I
could be
mean,
either.
so just on the basis of that, I can't really
Oh,
tell you
yes.
the correlations there.
Okay, so let's take everything else out. Let's take everything else out. Just look at body counts. Take race out. Take geographical regions. Just look at body
I've
counts.
already said that there's a correlation between body counts and STIs.
Well, then we have nothing else to talk about. Will, I want to protect myself from HIVs and whatnot. And if you think
But
that's
you
wrong,
don't though, because
that's
you
your
don't
own
even know the
opinion.
basic. You don't even know the basic level of protection
I
against
don't need to know the
HIV.
basic level.
So
You've agreed with me. People who have
but
more
yeah, because you're making shit
body
up to be
counts.
sexist. Wonderful. If you want an
You,
excuse to be sexist, feel free and
I'm
enjoy.
not sexist. I'm the least sexist person on this live right now. You're probably more
I'm the
sexist
least
than me.
sexist.
But you're
I have the least sexism.
but you're probably more
I
sexist.
look, I'm not you sound like Trump. Like I have the most black friends,
Well,
I
no,
have the
I mean,
least sexist. Like
listen,
no, this is such projection. Like no, all the liberals, they're so much more
okay.
sexist
Will,
than
why
me.
is it
They
that
didn't even
Will,
get they
yeah,
didn't even get they didn't even get $1 million loan. They didn't even pay off a porn star. Like they're the least sexist. No,
okay.
like this is
So
insane. You're obviously
if
sexist when you
if I
shame
don't
women
agree
for
with
something you
your
don't shame men for. That's absurd.
if I don't agree with you that well, I think both of them are not equally, but I think both of them are bad. I would discourage men and women from getting sleeping around more. I would, but I would discourage women more. That's my point,
Yeah, and
right?
I think that's sexist.
You can say that, but it's just you're doing the old
And
liberal
also, you
tactic of
walk back to your claim. So why, right? If you're talking about
what claim? What
danger,
claim did I walk
right?
out?
Men
Hold on.
who sleep around more are more dangerous.
I don't sleep with men. I don't care whether men get
So then
HIV
stop
or not.
speaking about men. Why are you speaking about
So
men?
then let's talk about women then, right? Women should
I
have
was,
less.
and I'm saying that your double standard regarding women is sexist, as well as your whole point here anyway, right? Because once again, the best thing you can do to reduce HIV and STIs, right, is actually advocating more sex positivity, right, and
Whoa.
sex education.
When you say sex positivity, you mean, you know, encouraging and promoting women to, go to 5 different clubs and sleep with 5 different men in each of those different
No,
clubs
that's not what I'm
each
saying.
day
What
out
I'm
of the
saying,
weekend. That's what you mean.
that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is sex positivity, reducing, right, the fear, anger, ignorance, and biases regarding sex, right? The
What are
hush-hush
they
nature of
fearing?
sex.
What are they fearing? You mean society shunning these people? Is that what you mean? We should absolutely
Yeah.
shun these people. If you have no, hold on.
Well, it doesn't work. It doesn't
If you
work.
have
That's the
100,
thing
it
is
absolutely works.
society shunning these people has caused, right, much, much higher levels of HIV and STIs. The only thing that works is accepting and engaging with, right, cultures and actions like this so that we can do what we can to make it safer.
But you do realize that society we discourage people with 1,000, 550, whatever, right? High sex partners. We discourage that. We say that's terrible. Don't do that. And it's right.
And
I
it
agree
doesn't
with that.
work. It doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't actually reduce the rate of STIs. It's delusional, right? That's why sex positive clinics are more effective. That's why sex education, right, and reducing the hurt and pain around discussing sex and sexuality is the only thing that has actually been shown consistently to reduce the rates of STIs and HIV.
It doesn't have to be
Because
an either
if
or.
you're going to be shamed for being sexual, you know what you're not going to do? Go to a clinic and say, "Hey, I've been sexual." You know what you're not going to do? Ask for one of your friends to give you a ride to the clinic, right? It makes all of this more difficult.
But it doesn't have to be an either or. I already agree with you. We need more of these clinics so that people don't get
But you are
HIV.
sex
But
negative.
it
But the
doesn't
thing
land.
is,
Hold
it
on.
doesn't matter how many clinics. It doesn't matter how many clinics you have if people aren't willing to go. And when you start shunning these people from society because they might associate themselves conceptually, possibly with sexuality, right? Oh, you need an STI test? You must be, you must be sleeping around. You must be horrendous, right? They're not gonna go.
But
So you're
would you
solving
say that?
half
Wait,
the,
wait, wait,
you're
hold on.
superficially solving half the
Wait, no,
problem,
no,
when 20
no.
years ago you wouldn't have solved half the problem. You're
Wait.
superficially solving half the problem without
So,
completing.
Will, let me ask you this though. I mean, would you say someone who's more likely to get benefits from, or who do you think is more likely to be helpful for someone to go to an HIV center or a STD testing center? Someone with 100 body counts or someone with one? Who do you think it will help more?
Who will it help more?
Yeah, who will it be more beneficial to?
Yeah, I think a huge amount of factors would go into it, but all
Yeah,
else equal,
yeah.
oh yeah, the person with higher body count.
So then we have nothing else to disagree here. We're in
No,
agreement
but
here,
what
Will.
you're doing, this is the exact
We're in
opposite,
agreement
because
here, Will.
you're actually what you're doing is okay. When we see this, we associate people going to an HIV clinic with them having a high body count, right? And then we shame people for having a high body count.
Let's look at the
Okay,
facts
so
again. Let's look at the
what
facts
will
again.
that inevitably do? That will shame people for going to an HIV clinic. And what
Okay,
will
the
that do?
shaming, that's
Increase the rates of HIV and STD.
am I arguing that my argument is people who have this has nothing to do with going to HIV clinics, right? I'm not saying that
I know,
we should,
because you don't actually care about the solutions.
I absolutely do. I agreed with you. We need more of these, right?
No,
Especially
I know,
for
but as I've said, the solutions don't work if you continue to be sex negative and shame them for going.
I never said we should shame them for going. I said we should shame them for even having to go there.
But my point is, right, is they will not go if you shame them for having gone, right? Because as I said, the association is, oh, you went to an STI clinic? Wow, disgusting, dirty, nasty, WHORE,
I agree. I
right?
agree with
It's
you.
the
Will.
same thing.
Will, I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree. We shouldn't
You
shame
are,
people.
because you're saying we
No,
should shame.
Will,
You're saying we
don't
should
tell me what I
shame them
agree with
for
you and what I
being
don't.
this. But the thing is you don't know what I do in my bedroom, right? But you might see me if I go to a STI clinic, right? I'm gonna be scared going out into public, going into an STI clinic, because my neighbor might see me, right? Or someone could tell my mom, if they think that being sexual at
I'm not
all
your
is
neighbor or
something to
your
be
mom,
afraid of.
Will. I'm not your neighbor or
But
your
my
mom.
point
I
is
agree.
you're shaming people, and when you're shame people into not going to an STI
The way
clinic.
you're
You know
distorting my
that.
argument is it's really wild because
I'm
my
not
argument,
distorting your
yes,
argument.
you
Are you
absolutely are
shaming people
because,
with high body counts? Are you shaming people with high body counts?
well, I'm not, but I think we should all collectively, I think we should discourage it, right? We should say you
Great.
shouldn't.
And will discouraging people from having high body counts inevitably shame them for going to an STI clinic?
Yeah, I think it will, right? I think it will.
Okay, then if we
Wait,
inevitably
say that
shame
again.
someone from having if we inevitably shame someone for going
Wait,
to
what
an
was your
STI
question?
clinic,
What was your
will that
question?
then not inevitably increase the rate of STIs?
No, if we tell people, hey, it's actually, and we give them, health brochures, and when we
How
tell them,
will reducing the rate of
well,
going
can you
to
let me
STI
talk for a
clinics
moment?
not increase the rate of
If we
STIs?
tell these people, please, right, nicely and calmly and politely, don't go to, I'm sorry, don't sleep with 50 people, 100 people, right? But if you do, you should absolutely get tested. What's wrong with that, Will? Comments, tell me what's wrong with that. Don't sleep with 100
Well,
people, but if you
what's
do,
wrong with this
right? Let me ask
what's
the
wrong
people
with
that
this
are
is
listening.
we don't have perfect watch over everyone always, right? Is when we shame someone, right, for having 100 plus bodies or whatever, right? We do it at the point at which we know, right? And the point at which you know is going to the point at which you are found out. And
No,
going to an STI clinic necessarily means you risk being found out,
wait, so you're saying people
right?
who
So
go,
when we necessarily risk being shamed by you, okay, they're going to risk it less. And when one of the biggest risks is going to an STI clinic, they're going to not go to an STI clinic
I
because
never
they don't
said,
want to take that risk of being shamed like you.
why are you
You don't
using the
have to.
word shame?
I'm not saying you're saying this.
But you're using
I'm
the word
saying this
shame.
is I'm saying that this is. I'm saying discourage. How should we discourage them?
Discouraging the fact that, we should discourage
Also,
it in
just to
our,
be
hold
clear,
on.
you did explicitly say we should shame them.
No, I said
I'll
that
pull out the record. I'll pull out the recording of this. You
no.
did explicitly say
So
we
then
should shun them from society. Were your
I said
exact
we should.
words
I said
multiple times.
I said people who have. I did use the word shun. People who have 100 body counts, they absolutely should be shunned. We should say because we can discourage this
Exactly. So
activity.
who does that hurt? Who does that help? Nobody. It helps nobody.
Wait. You're saying that if we tell people nicely, or maybe not nicely sometimes, don't have 1,000 bodies. Don't go sleeping around like you're some kind of a sex doll. Don't do that. Nicely, calmly, and politely. We say that in the media. We say that in
I
our
don't
schools.
care how
Wait,
nicely
hold
you're
on.
slut shaming. It doesn't
We,
matter. You're not helping anyone.
we say that in our.
You're not
So,
interested in safety because you know that your ideology will hurt more people.
what about slut discouragement? Is that a better way of saying it?
How? In what way?
It's slut discouragement because we're telling people
In what
don't
way?
be
Like,
sluts
what
in a
way are you
nice
discouraging
way.
them?
We're telling them, listen, this is bad for you. We're going to get doctors. We're going to get people who are onto this stuff, and we're going to say, these are the risks of having 100 bodies. These are the risks. If you want to have,
Okay, has that ever been shown to work?
has it? That's a great question.
No.
Has it?
No, it has not. Okay, I want you to do any research ever at all into abstinence and STI only education. Right. So I was raised, so I'll tell you about a little bit of my background, which is that I grew up in North Carolina where it was abstinence only in my school, right? Abstinence only education does not work. I'll repeat it for the people in the back. Abstinence only education does not work. STI only education does not work. We had extraordinarily high rates of teen pregnancy, of STI, of HIV transmission, especially by comparison to the socioeconomic status of my region, right? Compared to other comparable regions, we had incredibly high rates of this, right? So it does not work.
Okay.
Okay, so you're just spreading delusion. This discouragement is only going to make people more in danger, right? So you are literally pawning off the lives and health and safety of people
So
for
then,
your far right-wing extremist view.
so then we should encourage people. We should tell people, in high school,
No, but you're just gonna,
go
you're
ahead.
just gonna, you're such a liar. Like you're so useless
But
to
is
speak to
but what do we
because
need to
that's
do?
not what
What
I'm saying. You know that's
do
not
we
what I'm
need to
saying,
do from
right?
a
You're
social
so useless,
commentary
like you're
perspective?
barely even
Hold on.
relevant to speak to because
Will,
that's not even what we're saying. We're not
Will,
saying that we should encourage it. What we're saying is that you shaming them for it, you discouraging them for it, you scaring
Will,
them from it does nothing. So what I'm saying, right, is you should be quiet.
Will. What do we need to do in order to stop HIVs
I
and
think you should be
STIs?
quiet.
What do we need to do to stop HIVs and STIs, Will? What is it?
Fund holistic sex education.
And what do you mean by that? Tell us what it is, because you know so much about this stuff. We're just all idiots.
Absolutely.
Tell
So
us.
I received K-12 holistic sex education,
What
right?
is it?
That from kinder.
Go ahead.
Once
Yeah.
again, if you were actually interested in doing this, you would do any research. But I mean, I can educate you if you really desperately need
Go
it.
ahead, please.
So stop speaking then.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
So I engaged in K-12 sex education. In kindergarten, you learn what your private parts are, right? Who isn't allowed to touch, right? What some anatomical things are, right? And then it moves up progressively, and so that you have a comfort built into you with sexuality, right? With those things that are private, an understanding of consent and of relationships, and you don't have this stigma and disgust, right, around sexual topics, so that you feel comfortable coming to your parents, coming to trusted adults about sexual issues, right? That's something that's important to build, right? Starting from very young and building up into very old, right? And then when it becomes relevant, 7th and 8th grade, you start teaching about like the fundamental understanding of sex. Maybe we're recognizing the reality that they might start engaging in basic like sexual activities, right? And then, 9th, 10th grade, you start going into how to use and how to engage in contraception, right? What birth control is, maybe what PrEP is for queer students, explaining the risk factors and engaging in how to get tested for free, right? That was something that was taught to me. And then you also have to engage in normalizing activities, right? So I was brought out with a group of people to go out and buy condoms, right? Because in our society, it's very intimidating to go out and buy condoms because, oh, what if I see my English teacher outside? They're going to look at me funny and say, oh, you're having sex? That, you shouldn't be doing that, blah, 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 all this shit that you've been spreading, right? So you need to engage in normalizing activities. So when you can normalize having intercourse, right, outside of in society, you also normalize doing it in a safe way. So we should normalize having intercourse in a safe way. That's really simple.
Okay, what you just told me, it really doesn't differ that much from the, it may seem more comprehensive, but it doesn't really differ that much from the sex ed classes that I went to when I was in high school, right? It really doesn't. But what I would say is that you're actually putting people's lives at danger when you say body count doesn't matter, because you agreed with me that higher body count correlates with higher STI rates. So it doesn't matter, dating someone with higher, with chances of contracting higher, with chances of contracting more STI rates. It doesn't matter. You're putting
Yeah, just
people's
like I
lives
don't
at
think it
risk
matters that
here.
you're dating a black person. Like this is such a bullshit talking point.
But the way but this has nothing to do with race, right? Because if someone
I once
says,
again, what I'm pointing to is risk factors are relevant, not in the way you're describing them. Because how you can solve this, yes, the race of your partner doesn't matter. Yes, the body count of your partner doesn't matter.
it does matter.
If you're talking about risk factors, right, you know what you can do? Get tested. Because after you get tested, it's definite. This doesn't matter. Like, okay, the thing is body count as a measure is absurd. If I sleep with 100 people, wait 3 months, get tested, right? Those 100 people disappear. And then I effectively have the same body count as a virgin.
Do you not think that sleeping with 100 people puts you more at risk?
But it doesn't put my future partner at higher risk if I've gotten tested and I'm clear.
Okay, what
There's
if
no
what if,
amorphous
but
risk. If I sleep with 100 people, wait 3 months, and then get tested, and then sleep with another person, that is exactly the same risk
but
as
Will,
sleeping
it's
with
not
a
an either
virgin.
or. It's not an either or, right? Okay, it's not an either
What
or. It's
I'm
not
what
that
I'm saying is
my
it's not about body count. It's about proximity to having been tested.
but you can
It's about the
say,
number. It maybe it's about the number of bodies since being tested, right?
but we can also
Which would
say,
include my mother, which would include like that I came out of and could transmit HIV or something to me, right? It would include a bunch of
yeah,
things,
okay,
right?
yeah.
It's
So,
not about body count. It's about
but,
proximity to testing, which I am normalized testing and you're not. You would eventually start shaming people, like because they're, oh, you're seeing out at the testing center. Do you think that you need that? Blah, 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 blah.
do I have to repeat it like the fifth time I've
No,
told
I
you
know that
you need
you
more
aren't
testing
willing, and I
centers?
know that you're not willing to accept the consequences of your position. I'm not saying you will.
I think
I'm
you
not
aren't.
lying about whether you are,
Jesus.
but it is a consequence of your position.
But Will, it's not an either or. We can say, listen, go to testing centers, do it. We should encourage it. People, anyone, right? Anyone who has, sex, they should go to testing centers. It's amazing. We should make
But you're
them
shaming
free
people
if we
that have
can,
sex.
right? But we should say that if you have many sex partners, you wouldn't even have to go there, right? You can just have one or two sex partners, and you're completely fine. And if you're a woman, you should probably have zero sex partners unless you're married, right? I think that would be much.
Look. I'll tell you my personal rule is I don't have intercourse
Yeah.
unprotected with anyone that is not tested. Right? Doesn't matter how many partners they've had. Doesn't matter what they tell me. Right? No. Right? Point blank period. No. It doesn't happen. So this doesn't change anything. First of all, the whole women men distinction doesn't matter, right? Because as I've said, right, men with higher body counts are
To me, it
more
matters.
dangerous than women with higher body counts.
To me, it matters because I think that we need to protect women, really, right? I
And you're
mean,
just wrong, and you're just a liar. Like you're just wrong. Like it just doesn't matter because you're not actually taking care of people. You're not looking, right, to reduce the rates of HIV. Because even if your argument, right, was the sexist one of, oh, we should protect women, right? Well, you know what inevitably happens if more men have STIs? More women get it. Like, what are you talking about?
well, you live in California, right? I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, but and you said you're from.
I've literally said the opposite in this live.
Well, no, I'm just trying to like, where are these ideas coming into your head? Like, who's telling you this stuff? This is what I'm trying to understand because this
I
doesn't seem like a
grew up
normal.
in the American South.
Well, you
I
grew up
grew up
there,
in the former Confederacy.
but it just doesn't
What are you
seem like
talking about?
it just doesn't seem like you've been interacting with
I must have
normal
been
people.
indoctrinated, right? I must have been
I think that's what it
indoctrinated
is.
if I
But
have
the
this
they all.
view. Indoctrinated by who? My school district was the one that re-entered into segregation by making school busing illegal.
But do you not think that if
The
we're
history of
talking,
my education is a extraordinarily racist, classist, and horrendously regressive,
well, no,
horrendously regressive school district. Who is propagandizing me?
the reason
The
I
racist
said
at
you may be from
CMS?
the reason I said you may be from California is that other guy, I forgot his name, that does these lives. He's from California, and he agrees with you on these topics. And I'm just wondering, like, who's telling you people this stuff? It just seems like no normal person would say this stuff. At least normal people that I've talked with in my personal
Normal would
life.
say who? Normal people that you're around, right? Because you surround yourself with people that agree with you. It's very natural, right? But it doesn't mean that everyone that disagrees with you has been indoctrinated. If anything, I've had to fight against indoctrination on the other side.
But I just cannot understand why you're saying that it's body count doesn't matter. It absolutely matters in
It
the
doesn't
three
matter.
aspects I've given you, right? If people, first and foremost, you have to respect people's religions, right? You can't say, you
I
know,
don't have to respect people's. You're wrong. I don't, and I don't respect people's religion.
religious freedom is a very, very, very important thing.
That's a government thing. That's like saying I have to respect what people say because they say it. No, I don't.
Well, no, I mean, if you're a government official,
And I
you
don't
can't
respect your
talk.
religion. Most religions are dumb and hurtful.
Well, no, what I'm saying is if someone says, in my religion, we believe that you can't sleep around, you can't go ahead
Yep,
and
and I'll tell them that that's a
ostracize them.
wrong and
You can't
sexist view.
ostracize them.
Absolutely, I can.
You can't
I can
ostracize them.
ostracize them. 100%, I can.
It would be wrong of you to do that, right? It would be very
No, it
wrong of you
wouldn't.
to do that. Yes, it would.
No, it
right?
wouldn't.
Because
But this is obviously stupid.
you're regulating
right?
what
Like if
people
so,
do, right? You're regulating what
I'm
people
not
do.
regulating. I'm not the government.
No, but with your words, you are, right? I'm not using that in a
I'm
literal
wait, no,
sense.
no.
I'm just
But
saying-
then with your words, are you
no, with my
regulating what
words,
I have to do? If you say no, if you say
Well,
I believe this, right, and because I believe it, you can't disagree, right? One of us is regulating each other, or neither of us are regulating each other, which is the correct thing. I'm not regulating you. You're not
but
regulating me.
if we had
I'm
your
stating what
ideas,
I think, and you're stating what you think, right? I'm perfectly well allowed to disagree.
but if we had your ideas implemented at a nationwide, right? I can
Yeah, then
promise
that
you
would be
this.
a violation of freedom of speech. But equally, if we had your
No,
ideas
in the right way. In the
implemented,
right way.
if we had your ideas implemented in government, right, that would be a violation of freedom of religion.
I don't mean that I'm.
So this is stupid though, because like you stating your religious beliefs, right, is not a violation of my religious beliefs, and me stating that I think your religion is wrong and dumb, right, which is my belief regarding your religion, just as you have a belief regarding your religion,
personally, right?
is not violating your
personally-
freedom of religion. You can be offended, you can be in your fifis, but I can perfectly well disagree with you, and it's perfectly fine.
But personally,
Something
you
being
are in no
religious doesn't
position-
make it immutable.
But personally, right? For me, you are in no position to tell me whether I prefer people with 2 or 1 or 5 body counts rather than someone with 100. You're nobody. You just seem like an asshole, really. That's what you would seem like to me if you did that. Which you.
And that's
probably
fine.
are,
But if we're going to engage in a discussion, right, then we're going to set out. You need to justify to me why, right, your fifis get so angry when I talk about your religion rather than any other belief. Religious beliefs aren't special, right? You can pretend that they're special, but they're not special. There's no reason for me to care that, oh, you label this a religious belief, now I have to give it special privileges. That's totally arbitrary.
But
Why
the
are your
thing is,
religious
though,
beliefs off discussion?
I already gave you 3 points. It's more than just religion, right? I've given you 3 points.
Yeah,
Number
it's
1,
religion, sexism, and lies.
and preference.
Yeah, a sexist preference.
No, it's not really sexist because the thing is, though, if you're a gay man, right? If you did that, and if you, let's say hypothetically, there are conservative gay people here, right? I don't know if you know that one guy who looks like he has 100 different plastic surgeries on his face. He's a conservative. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about, but this guy, I think he would agree with me on this, right? And he's gay. That most people shouldn't go around sleeping around, right? Would he also be sexist?
Yeah, he also agrees
amongst
that like
men?
women aren't of equal value. Like he's an
Do you know
idiot.
who I'm talking about? Do you
Once
know-
again, what he believes doesn't matter because he's a disingenuous like POS. Like, don't care.
But I'm just. Would he be sexist against men in that case?
If he agreed with you in the
If
way
he
that
said
you
that
mean,
if he said
which is that
men-
body count matters for is that with that body count matters for women but not men, or at least body count matters more for women. If he agreed with that, that would be sexist.
If
absolutely.
he said that he's attracted to men and that he doesn't want men to have,
I don't care where you're attracted to.
but it matters. I mean, we're talking about sexual partners. It matters who you're attracted
Wait,
to.
yeah. So I think the fact
What do you
the
mean
reason
by
that I
that?
call the reason that I call your preference sexist, right, is because it's the underlying belief is that it really is only women that
So
you
would
care
his
about,
be would
in
his
terms of
position be
body.
sexist? Would his
Would
position be
his
sexist
position be
also?
sexist if the underlying belief was equally that women
No, it's about men. He's attracted to men, right? He says,
what I'm making is the parallel.
but you can't do that because he's not attracted to women.
I
He's
can't
gay.
make the actual parallel
You can't do that. No,
to
you
the
can't do that.
analogy,
No, you can't do that because he's attracted to men. I'm not attracted to men. I'm attracted to
so I
women.
can't make a parallel.
No, use
Do you know what it
as an
means to like
example.
continue an analogy?
But can you use him as an example, right? His situation. He's
Yeah, I'm
attracted
using
to
him
men.
as an example.
So continue, right? He's attracted to men. He says, I don't want men
So I'm
sleeping
making
around.
the analogy. Yeah,
He doesn't want men sleeping around. Is that sexist?
I understood you. You've said it 4 times. Do you think I didn't hear
So
you?
go ahead. Go ahead.
So why are
What's your
you
answer?
repeating yourself?
Because I want to make sure you understand me because you're answering completely
Repeating
different
yourself
things
won't
than I'm
make me
asking you.
understand you more.
It seems like it. When I ask you 2 or 3 times, you get it eventually. So can you
I
answer my
understand
question?
it every single time you don't let me answer properly. You interrupt me
Okay,
to
go
repeat
ahead.
yourself. Stop doing that.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
So,
I'm
what
let,
I was saying, stop
I'm giving
speaking.
you. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
What I said was, if his underlying belief was that it only mattered in men and not women, yeah, that would be sexist. As I've said, right, the reason that I have an issue with your belief is because the underlying belief of it is that it really only matters in women, right? And that informs the preference in the first place. The preference doesn't exist by itself. The preference is part of a larger structure and superstructure that you have expressed, right? Which is that it has to do with them being women, right? It has to do with us protecting women. That's why I call it sexist.
So
Right? So if he had a directly, actually parallel belief that, oh, we need to protect men, oh, it really only has to do with men, yeah, it would. Yeah, it would. But
okay.
the way you escape liability for your prejudices is by pretending like your beliefs stand alone, but they don't. And you know they don't because you've expressed to the contrary.
So if we so you're so focused on you're a sexist part. This is why you leftists do. You just demonize people.
Well, you asked me a
It's a
question
form of
about whether
fascism,
it
by
was
the way.
sexist, so I'm focused on answering your question.
What if
You
I said
asked me if it would be no, that's such bullshit. And you know it is.
it isn't?
Come on.
It really
Like
isn't because I'm not a
human to
sexist.
human, person to person, speaker to speaker. You asked me a question about it being sexist. And then I answered as to whether or not it would be sexist.
But
How in the
why?
world am I the one who is obsessed with it being sexist when you're the one that asked me a question 4 times, the same question about it being sexist?
Well, because you started it. You're the one who's calling me a sexist this whole time. Before I even
Yeah,
brought
but
this up,
I'm
you
not
were
the one
calling me a
obsessed. You
sexist.
continued the conversation. I answered your question. So me answering your question, how is that me being obsessed?
Because I want to get it through you that I'm not actually sexist, right? Because I
Cool, so
actually.
you disagree, but it's not about me being obsessed. You disagree.
Okay, so what if I said that?
So in what way is it about me being obsessed?
Because you're continuously calling me a sexist when I'm not a sexist.
Yeah, because you
Why are
asked
you
me
doing
how
that?
it was sexist.
But why are you doing that? I'm not a sexist.
Because you asked
You
me
have
how
no
it was
evidence for that.
sexist. So I'm continuing the conversation. This is the thing, is
You
when
have no
you
evidence.
lose a point,
I know.
you pretend like the original point you were trying to make didn't matter.
It does matter, right? Because this guy, you're saying that he would be sexist against men for simply saying, listen, I'm attracted to men and I don't want men sleeping
Not what I
around
said.
because you said he would be sexist if you're contradicting yourself right now, Will.
On what condition did I say that he would be sexist?
If he said that, it's for the protection of men and whatnot, right? You said that.
There we go.
But in that case,
You need to add that relevant context because I added it.
well, but the thing is though, it's I wouldn't even say it's that relevant. If someone is sexist, they hate women. I don't hate women, right? And so why are you calling me? I love women.
Sexism is not just hate.
Right.
Sexism is an unjustified prejudice against them.
Hate. That's what hate is. It's unjustified.
No, it's
Right.
not. That's very different. It's an unjustified prejudice, right? So an prejudice can be accidental and not direct. Hate really can't.
Right. But I mean, you can say that. But what if I said if I would disagree with men and women getting, what is it called? Having
But
50 different
that
partners.
would be you
Would that-
lying because that's not your position.
No. If I said that, would you say that still?
But
Because we're talking
I
about-
would just call you a liar because that's not your position.
I want to talk about body count. I don't want to talk about sexism, right? So I'm saying
I
Would
know,
that
because
still?
so you're gonna lie about your own
No, I'm
position.
not
I'm not
lying.
going
This is
to
a
engage in a
hypothetical
lie.
because this is a
Okay, I'm
hypothetical. I'm
not
not
going to
lying.
engage in the hypothetical unless you can prove
Why
that it's
not?
relevant.
Why not? Because you know that it would actually change the position.
Unless you can prove that it's relevant.
It is relevant because I want to see how your position changes from this, right?
My position on what?
On body counts, what we're discussing here, Will, we're not talking about sexism. We're
But
talking about
wait,
body
if you're just
counts.
saying wait, no,
Jesus.
but the thing is how we engage in hypotheticals, right? Is we don't engage in if hypothetically my position was this, what would you say? Right? No. How we engage in hypotheticals, right, is by comparing the actual positions we have. Right? So, okay, well, if this was happening, how would your position apply? How would my position apply? I don't want to engage with devil's advocacy with you. I don't care. Oh, well, hypothetically, could I not be sexist and have this
No,
opinion?
I don't want to. I already told you I
Maybe,
don't want
maybe
to
you
talk about
could. Maybe you
sexism.
could have this
Can
position
we go
and not
back
be
to the action?
sexist, right? But that's not you.
Will,
You're not the one who does that. Your actual position is both sexist and having this
can we
position.
talk about the topic at hand, Will? Can we do that
I
for
mean, you
1
don't
second?
seem to be able to because you just
Just
lie
for
about your
1
position.
second.
I don't want to. I'm not going to engage in a disingenuous debate with you.
This isn't disingenuous. These are my actual beliefs. I
Okay, is it
believe them.
Are you going to ask me hypothetically if this is my position?
Not me, not me. There are people who believe in this. You know that, right?
Talk to me. You talk to me.
Okay, so body counts. If someone said both male and women,
No. You talk to me about your position.
about my position. Okay, so body counts for men and women. Do they matter or don't they matter?
They don't matter.
They don't matter.
Do you
Okay.
believe they matter equally?
I think I've already made that clear, right?
Answer.
I've already made that clear, right? They not to the extent that you would want them to be, right? I think that me personally,
Great, then you're sexist.
I'm not a sexist. That's absolutely right. I mean, I think that
To see how that argument goes, right?
sex exposes people to diseases and whatnot. I want to protect women. You don't, right? Because you don't care for
Yeah,
women.
but you don't want to protect men. Sexist.
Wait, I don't. Men can be. I don't care, right? I really don't, right? I just
Exactly.
don't.
So you have an unjustified. But the thing is I know it's an unjustified prejudice because that's actually the exact opposite of reality. In fact, men are less likely to get tested. They are the ones that would need protection more
And if
because
someone
they are
said,
the ones being hurt more by this.
and if someone said, let's encourage men to get more tested, what do you think my position would be? What do you think I would say to that?
I think that's great, right? But you don't. That's not what
Okay.
you're advocating. What you're advocating is that the women are the ones that need protection, despite that actually not being in line with reality.
But
But
the thing
anyway,
is,
I
though,
do think you're kind of just like a disingenuous fuck. So I will
but this
move
isn't
on to another
disingenuous.
person.
These
You
are
can have a
actual.
final. You can have a
You're
final
putting
point.
people at risk, Will.
Then you can have a final point.
When I have the
then I'll move
facts,
on
you
to
don't
the
want to
next
talk.
person.
And the issue is that you are putting people at risk, and I have issues with this position and showing you actual facts that higher body counts correlates with higher STD rates, and you're just brushing that off like it doesn't matter. It matters, Will.
Which I've already agreed with. So is that your final point?
If you have a revenge because you have HIV, I don't know what it is, but leave people alone. Let them have their preferences. Don't regulate people's moralities, right? People can say I prefer someone with
I'm not
zero
regulating
sex
anyone.
partners. Yes, you are. People can say I want someone
can't
with
regulate.
zero
I'm not a
sex counts,
regulatory
and that
body.
would be
So
wonderful. Perfect. You're putting people's lives at risk.
Peace out and
Will.
slay the day.
Why are you doing that?
Hello.
Oh shit. Hold on a second. Let me get outside real quick. Sorry.
Absolutely. Well, I'll do a bit of a plug. Y'all should follow me up here, and y'all should follow my YouTube. It's linked in my bio. Shout out to everyone who follows my YouTube. I will be uploading more and more to my YouTube. And we'll have a good time.
All right. 1 second here. Just don't want to wake anyone up. How you doing, Will?
Doing real well. How about you?
Good. My Wi-Fi here is also not the best, so if I cut out every once in a while, maybe, hopefully that won't happen, but just warning you, it might. So, all right. Anyway, body count. Yeah, I would say it does matter, and that it matters for both genders, right? So that's the first primary distinguisher between me and the last guest, it sounds like. And so I'm wondering what I'll let you say what your argument would be for why it doesn't matter at all.
I just I don't see a good reason for it mattering, right? In terms of relationships, it doesn't really affect safety post being tested. It doesn't really affect, I mean, trustworthiness. There's nothing of there's no valuable information being transmitted that people should. And by and large, the reason that people have a prejudice regarding body count is due to sexist or patriarchal constructs rather than like reality.
Sure. Yeah, I can actually totally agree with you that a lot of the people on the body count matters side do unfortunately have like very poor justifications for their belief, and they do a lot of times stem from sexism and just very like what's the word I'm trying to think of? Just like superficial things, right? Like just the idea of I just want somebody who like has been with less people. I just want someone who has had less people inside of them, you know, like that's totally superficial. So that's not why I care. And I also don't view it in the sense of like there's like some strong cutoff number where it's like after this point I would never consider being in a relationship with this person because it's just too many. I do absolutely think that the context behind body count still matters, and probably regardless of whatever the number was, there's going to be some kind of scenario where if I have some more context, I could see it as being something that doesn't, you know, like rule that person out as being an option for me. But it definitely is still something I take into account. Like, so in that case, in that instance, what I'm saying is that it's not a deal breaker for me, right? But it's still something that I say matters because it's still one of the things that I would learn throughout getting to know somebody that I would factor into my overall opinion and judgment of them. Again, it would still be important to find out more about it, but I think that the count does matter because...
So why? Yeah.
So because I guess for me personally, it would probably be mostly a couple things. Mostly one, just that like I personally, I don't sorry, something's going on. I don't like see myself. I'm not the type of person who sleeps around with people who I don't have like a serious emotional connection with, right? I don't do the whole hookup culture scene and all that. And so if somebody has a high body count, it's not necessarily going to be a guarantee that like they are that type of person. But I mean, let's say I meet someone who's like 22, same age as me, and they have 30 bodies. Again, I would still probably want to figure out more context if I really do like this person, but just from a purely like just kind of logical assumption point of view, it'd probably be safe to assume that if they have 30 bodies at 22, probably not all of those bodies were like people who they had serious emotional connections with, right? And if they were, that would still kind of be an extra red flag for me because it would say like that they're very, very quick with getting super emotionally involved with people and then moving on to the next, which would also just kind of indicate some things about why they're maybe not so compatible with me, right? So it's not about like value. I would never say like, oh, you're just less valuable the more bodies you have or whatever, because value, that's just dumb. But like, it is about compatibility and finding someone who, you know, seems to match up with me in certain characteristics.
Yeah, but doesn't that seem to be using body count as a proxy for other values?
Sorry, what do you mean by that?
So you're using body count to approximate someone's willingness to have intercourse with people that they don't have an emotional connection with.
Sure.
You're using, yeah, but so then body count itself doesn't matter. Those actual values do, right?
Right.
We would just say that it's corollary difficulty. This would be a third factor issue. You're actually looking for these other factors, and you're using body count to approximate that. I think that's fine, but I don't think that makes body count matter, like in terms of actuality, right? It would just mean, because obviously then you would just look to the ulterior factor. In fact, the amount of people that they've had intercourse doesn't matter, right? It's just that you can gain information from it. But first of all, that information isn't very reliable. And second of all, I mean, you can just ask them or engage in a deep discussion with them to describe that.
Whichever way.
So yeah, when I say it doesn't matter, right? What I mean is it doesn't matter in fact itself.
Yeah, I mean,
Like lots of
definitely
things can
agree.
approximate
It's not
other
the end all
things.
be all. It's not the end all be
No,
all.
no, I'm saying that it's not a scale, right? I'm not saying it matters a little, but not a lot, right? It's not an end all be all. What I'm saying is that itself doesn't matter. Body count itself doesn't matter, right? Could it matter in that it's assigned to other people, this thing? Yeah, yeah, it could, right? But like equally, like the clothes that I wear don't really matter in terms of my dateability, but they might matter in terms of like how I choose to present myself, right? Or those type of things, like as a sign, as a signal. And I think body count can be a signal of a lot of things. It could go either way, really. Um,
Right, but that's why I
and we
would
could
say
go
it
down
does
what it
matter,
also
is because it
represents.
is a good way to gauge certain things. And I would say you shouldn't just leave it at that and just ask someone their body count, and then as soon as they say that, you just make all these assumptions and don't bother to actually try to verify any of them. But I do think that it's still useful in the sense of getting to know the person and getting to gauge more how compatible they might be with you. So it just seems kind of wrong to me to say that it just doesn't matter then. Because I feel like the implication with saying it doesn't matter is that saying like having any type of preference about body count or like caring about someone's body count enough to want to ask them maybe is like invalid in some way, and it's like that's a red flag on you as a person if you
I
dare
think it
to.
is I think it is because you can kind of just have a discussion with someone about those things without inquiring into their sexual history, right? Like I think those are two very different things, and you don't need like the empiric evidence to draw that conclusion. You'd be like, oh, like do you typically, when I have intercourse with people you don't have a close connection with, right? Like that's interesting. Or talking about like their
Yeah,
exes or stuff like that. That's interesting actually getting the story behind it, right? But the number itself gives next to no information.
I wouldn't say it gives next to no. Again, of course, I would agree. You always got to find more context, but it's like a sliding scale of like the higher the number goes, the safer it is to make certain assumptions, right? Like I can't know for sure if someone who has 8 bodies at 25 has like slept around and those are all 8 one-night stands, or if they were all 8 serious boyfriends or girlfriends. But like someone at 25 who has 100 bodies, it's pretty much a guarantee that they've like experienced some kind of aspect of hookup culture. They've at least like experimented around for maybe it was even a short period of time, but if it was, then they were really like
Uh,
really experimenting during that time.
but
So
what
I
does that tell you about them now, though, is the question, right? Like
yeah,
I've met people who have one body who are, the most experimental, interested in things, right? And they just have it for, I don't know, safety or cultural reasons, right? And then I met people with 300 bodies, right, that don't anymore,
yeah.
because they've learned and grown from the experience, right? Like those, and it's next to impossible to tell the difference between those two, right? Like that's why I'm saying there's very little information you can draw from this. The only information you can draw from this is someone's past experience, right?
Right, but
Someone's
that
past
is
experience.
relevant.
But if anything, right, someone having 300 bodies in past experience isn't ever going to be a bad thing.
I mean, I'm not, well, I don't know if I would agree that having a super high body count isn't ever a bad thing, if that's what
In
you're
terms of
saying.
past experience, in terms of having a diversity of experience sexually. It
Well,
seems really hard to me to argue that a diversity of experience sexually is ever going to be a bad thing.
well, it's not so much just the fact that they've been experimented, they've been with however many people. But the second point I was going to make for why it does matter to me, besides just kind of compatibility and trying to find someone who like values intimacy the same sort of way I do, right? And that they're not going to sleep with somebody unless they have a deep connection with them. It's that, but also the fact that I do think higher body count can often indicate, just like the other thing, it's an indicator, right? Not a guarantee, but it can indicate, I think, a kind of poor decision making in the past, because I do think that sleeping with people who you don't know, like at all, like sleeping with people who you just met, kind of randoms, like one-night stands, hookups at bars and parties and clubs, which again, like you wouldn't be able to guarantee that they have if from whatever body count, but let's say you meet someone with 100 bodies at 25, pretty safe to assume that they've slept with at least a few people who they probably like barely knew, right? Who they probably just met that day or a few days ago. It's possible that they like went through a really thorough vetting process for all 100 of those people, but not likely. Again, sure, I would still want to get to know them more if I really think I might have,
What do you mean by poor decision making, though?
Yeah, well,
in what way is that a poor decision?
In what way is it a poor decision just to sleep with someone who you barely know?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty skewed like risk versus reward there, because the reward is just purely just instant gratification, just kind of a superficial need to just get one off with a random person who you're never going to see again, which, people love to do. They really like to do that. And so that's like super, that's a real reward to them. But the risks are, I don't think I need to go too much into what the risks are of sleeping with a person that you just met at a club or a bar, right?
But can you actually infer this from high body count people? Because, by and large, right, when you have a high body count, you actually tend to engage in more protective behaviors.
More protective in the sense of, maybe like getting regular STD tests and stuff, sure. But I'm not even necessarily talking about STDs. I'm just talking about the risk of like going over to some dude's house or letting them into your house who's like someone who you just met 8 hours prior at a bar or a club or whatever. Like I view that as a really poor decision to do that, especially if you're doing it on a frequent basis. You're like regularly meeting people and then bringing them over to your place that same night, or like going over to their place.
So what you mean is like risk-taking behavior.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, like in the sense of, I view that as either just kind of indicating impulsivity and just not very careful decision making, or just having maybe just not a good sense of like what good decisions are and what's like.
Well, you're conflating two things, good and risk-taking, right? I think that's a false equation, right? Like, good is a very difficult thing to judge. Risk-taking behavior is objectively, having hookups can be risky. It can not be. It depends. Contextually, of course. And
I'd say sleeping with anybody who you barely know, who you've known for like a day or less or something, regardless of whatever, protection you're using, is always like risky and not a safe decision.
Risky on what scale?
That you're like putting yourself in an intimate situation with a total stranger. I view that as...
Yeah, but I'm also putting myself in an intimate situation when I like stay in a hostel, right? But like if someone told me they were really into like solo traveling, I don't think I'd be like, wow, that's really risky. You shouldn't. Like, the thing is this is where I think the conflation is difficult. My choice to take a risk, right, is not a bad choice necessarily, even if it has low reward, right? The fact that I took a risk is morally neutral, right?
Yeah,
it actually says very little about my decision making abilities, right? We don't generally view risky behavior as like bad decision making. What we would view as reckless behavior as bad decision making. And you would have to ask about the nature of the intercourse, right? Did you send your location to your friend before, right? Do people know where you are, etc.? But this applies in all intimate settings, right? Am I alone with one person ever, right? It's much more risky, right, to be alone in a whole bunch of other circumstances, right? Than to do that. If someone told me on a first date that they were really into like free climbing, right, I'd be like, oh, like you're dumb. But I wouldn't think that they're a worse off partner because they're into free climbing, because I think, oh, like free climbing, risk reward ratio is nothing. You see how risk reward ratio, like, typically actually kind of goes the opposite. We typically tend to appreciate people who take risks, right? Just for the thrill and enjoyment of it. But then it is completely turned on its head and people are shamed when they take risks sexually. I don't understand that.
Yeah, well, obviously I don't think like all risk is bad. And I also have no view on like morality of it. I'm not making any kind of argument there. It's just purely from a sense of like, again, it's just kind of a compatibility thing in terms of like what you value personally, because you brought up like other risky behaviors, being into free climbing or doing a lot of solo travel. Like, yes, there's plenty of things that are like respectable to do that are risky. Oh, that's cool. You got an experience out of it, and like, yeah, something bad could have happened, but you were willing to take the risk. Like, there's plenty of ways in which that's good. I'd also like to know exactly what you mean by reckless versus risky. Like, what is the difference between those two to you?
So
Because like,
taking a risk that was undue for no like when you okay, same reward, multiple risks, taking more than necessary risk for same reward, I would say is generally reckless.
taking more. Sorry, say that again.
So same reward,
Mm-hmm.
multiple ways to do it,
Mm-hmm.
some more risky than others. I'd say
Okay.
typically I'd certainly call something it's just entirely unnecessary risk, right? Like you had
Sure.
multiple options, right, and you chose to take this risk rather than this
Well,
one.
I
And
would say
decide.
then that sleeping with somebody, just hooking up with somebody random really quick, because it was like, because that's if you're just wanting to hook up right now, and you can just go to a club and maybe find someone to go home with that night, and the reward for that is you get some some sexual satisfaction out of that, some immediate gratification. Like, you can get that same reward by being less risky also, right? So you are still like kind of taking more risk
How?
for the same reward. The same reward of sleeping with somebody. I mean, you can spend a little more time of getting to know them, right? And maybe not just sleep with the first person who you
Yeah,
find at
but
a bar.
it's not the same reward, right? What I'm referring to is almost no cost, right? So like being on, I don't know, birth control, etc. It's not the same thing. It's not like literally the same thing. Like when I'm referring to this is like, I don't know, free climbing but not telling anyone to watch you. Free climbing but just being totally and utterly untrained, right? Like you're doing the exact same thing, right? But you're just not taking the precautions that are necessary, right? So I would think, someone who goes out, right, goes to a club by themselves, doesn't tell anyone where they're going, doesn't do anything, doesn't have any preparations, right, and then goes home randomly to another guy's house, right?
Hmm.
I would think, yeah, you're stupid, right?
Sure.
I think you're literally just being reckless. Because you could have taken really simple, stupidly simple precautions, but you chose not to for literally the exact same thing. But once again, right, we tend to value risk-taking behavior in partners, right? That is a
With some
valuable trait
things.
when we look
With
at
some
mating.
things.
But no, what's the distinction? What's the difference then? Because you distinguished it, right? Is you did for a second verbally. In some acceptable areas
Right.
we value risk taking, so it's not about risk taking, it's not about judgment, right? It's that they are risk taking in this area that you deem to be, what I would say you're doing is, as the other guy said, icky. You deem these ones to be icky, you deem these ones to be acceptable and cool and niche and cool, like slay, right? So
Right.
we're going to value these and not value these. So it's not about the risk taking. So it does just come down to your preference, which, like, cool, does just come down to your preference. But I think the reason that you're trying to justify it, saying, oh well, risk here, that's gross and you're dumb. Risk here, well, maybe you're adventurous and cool. I
Sure.
think I think it's an unjustified prejudice.
I mean, I definitely think that, yeah, different people are going to have different values and just different views on which things they think that it's cool to be risky with, and that's kind of adventurous, or which things that they're going to see you being risky with and think, oh well, I wouldn't want to be with that person because that's just a little too reckless for me. Because I think where we just disagree is that so you admit that if someone were to participate in hookup culture and they're just not taking like any precautions whatsoever to try to be safe, then that is reckless, and that does kind of indicate some negative things about them as a person, right?
Yeah, but in the same way that then, like, I don't know, driving recklessly would, or
Yeah,
free climbing recklessly would, or like solo traveling without telling anyone where they're going would. It's
yeah,
on a much
I think
lower
it's
scale
valid
than what you're
for,
suggesting.
but I think it's valid for people to look at things like that too, and be like, oh well, that they're a little too reckless in that area for me. Like, I wouldn't be like
Yeah.
that, and so I don't think me and that person are gonna be so compatible.
But
So that's something that I.
the problem is body count doesn't tell you that.
but it isn't an indicator for that, and it can be a very good indicator
It
depending on
isn't
how
though. It isn't. I'd actually say it's a contraindicator. I'd say if you have a higher body count, you're actually much more likely to take these very simple precautionary steps, right, to ensure that you're safe when you're having intercourse.
Sure.
Whereas if
Well,
you have a lower body count, you probably have less experience, and therefore your friends probably have less experience, and therefore you probably have less education regarding it. So therefore you're probably less likely to take these very simple precautionary steps, right? So
mhm.
I'd say actually a higher body count is a contraindicator of this type of recklessness.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I also wouldn't I wouldn't really want to necessarily be with somebody who's a virgin either, because I do want somebody who's like has some life experience, right? I like just like how I would want someone who doesn't still live with their parents and who has experienced like living life on their own. I want someone who has, gone through some risks of life and whatever. But what I was gonna say is that like what the difference between you and me is I view it as an extra precaution that should be taken whenever you sleep with somebody to get to know them for a little bit, because I think even if you were taking all the other precautions, if you go and find somebody at a bar and sleep with them 8 hours later, like you really have no idea who that person is at all, and that's just always going to be a risky decision. Even if you send, your location to your friends, like that's not necessarily going to prevent anything from happening. It's just going to be like, oh well, now they can arrest the guy after he murders you and eats you. Obviously, a little fear mongering there, but
Yeah,
like,
I mean, but the thing is the reason I point to this is because, like, I think, like, the reason I say this is because I think a prejudice is coloring your view of risk. Because in fact, right, people are much more likely to be unalived or essayed by people that they know,
mhm.
right? Like, we all know
You,
that. That's
well,
just the fact of the matter, right? They are just much more
sure,
likely to be unalived or essayed by people that they know.
yeah. Although
So,
I do have
like,
like
the
kind of a
actual
critique of
risk
that.
here, and what?
I have kind of a critique of that though, because I've had this discussion before with people. I totally get that is indeed what the statistics show, is that people are more often, unalived or essayed by people who they know, people who they're in relationships with, or family members. Um, but I don't think I think that the context behind the statistic is important, in that I do think that if like everybody was just super into hookup culture and was always just sleeping around with strangers all the time, just random people at bars, and they didn't bother to try to get to know anybody at all, pretty sure those stats would change, right? Like obviously it's important that the stats do show that in big part due to the fact that like as most people spend a whole lot more time in intimate situations where this kind of thing can happen with people who we know very well, right? Because most people know that like you should probably get to know somebody more before you become more intimate with them, right? And so of course, like,
Well,
yeah,
what
it's
I
not.
just, I understand what you say. What I'd say to that is actually, yeah, they probably, if everyone was really into hookup culture, they probably would switch, but for a different reason, which is that people wouldn't feel pressured to be in relationships that are with people that don't respect their consent or expect their consent not to matter at a certain level. That's the tact I would take. Is yeah, if people were more sex positive, had more progressive understanding and view of sex, right? Then yeah, we would reach a place where strangers were essaying you more because domestic people were essaying you less because you were in less horrid domestic situations, right? So
Right.
we
Well, I
we
mean,
can
what I'm saying
understand
is,
those
I think
statistics either
if
way
you
we
spend an
want.
equal amount of time, if you spend an equal amount of time in very intimate, risky situations with total strangers, as you did with like friends and family and people who you're in relationships with, then I think that those stats would switch. Because I mean, do you disagree that
Yeah,
like
actually I do
overall it's
disagree with
probably
that statement. I think that actually them being friends and family enables it much more than them being strangers. I
right?
think
Well,
that
that's what I'm
logic falls
saying though.
apart. So actually, a lot of these are habitual abusers, right? That's how you build habitual abusers because they have power and social influence over you, right? So when you
Mhm.
separate sexuality from social influence, you remove the social power dynamics that come along with that, and that reduces the gendered power dynamics as well. So I
Sure. I
actually
mean,
do
like
just
for
disagree.
for
Like
like
if you
domestic
spent,
violence, sure. I'm mostly thinking of like essay specifically,
but essay
like
is
getting essay by someone.
essay is DV,
Yeah.
right? It's a huge amount of DV, and I'm saying that the reason you would see reductions in essay is because the same drivers of DV um, would be taken out of the sexual engagement in that context.
I guess, but I mean, it seems like the implication of this would be that, I mean, it almost seems like you're saying you would disagree that you're generally going to have more assurance that you're safe being alone with somebody the more you get to know them. I mean, do you
So I
disagree on
think I think what's fascinating is it's a sliding scale. Yes, kind of, but only up to a certain point, which case it kind of gets more dangerous on a large scale, on a societal scale, right? Because let's
that?
talk about this in reality. People aren't like, well, I met this guy at a bar. I'll talk for 2 weeks and then have a one night stand with him and then leave him, right? Like what's happening is it's a night, right? Or it's like a few months, or it's a few years, right? It's not this like sliding scale that you're talking about. You know what I'm talking about though, is it's not like, well, let me talk to him for like 4 days and then I'll hook up with him. I guess 5 days is the right amount. What happens is either it's this stranger that you've randomly met who has no social bearing on you, and you can kind of judge relatively quickly, and you can say no to or say yes to, right? That's really important. Is there's much less social pressure, social engagement. It's your choice, right, to engage in this based off less information, yes, right, but there's no social pressure influencing it. Or you start getting into longer social relationships, right, that have social pressures and all of these biases and structures and harmful hierarchies that built into it when you get into larger social relationships. And I'd say both of them come with difficulties, but I think well, actually, what you have done is overemphasize, right, the dangers of ignorance and extraordinarily underemphasize the dangers that are pre-baked into long-term relationships in our society. So I think they're both issues, but I don't think you can tell me that one is going to be a better answer or a bigger issue than the other, and that one is actually more risky when the statistics say the opposite.
Okay, well, so I mean, do you not agree then that as a whole, it's probably less risky to sleep with somebody after getting to know them for, let's say, 2 weeks than it would be if you slept with them after getting to know them for 8 hours? Do you think that there's
I
no
mean, it would contextually matter. If it's just getting to know them, maybe. I don't know what other information you really gain though. Like,
Well, yeah, that's the whole point. Just
like a
trying to
lot
get
of
who they are as a person.
serial unalivers, like, had relationships with their people. Like, I'm confused as to what information you're gaining. Like general character information. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you've talked to me for 2 weeks. I guess you won't unalive me. Like, kind of. But I would say at a certain point, social relationships start forming. And by and large, when you talk to someone for 2 weeks, they're going to be built into your social circle, and then those pressures start forming, and it becomes harder to say no, right? I think integral to this discussion is the idea of the fluidity of sexuality in these spaces, and the fluidity of sexuality reinforces consent.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I mean, like, and yeah, so obviously somebody can put on a facade that they are a very trustworthy person who would never do anything wrong to you. They could do that for 2 weeks. Like, that's not that hard, and people can do it for years, right? Where you're in a relationship with them for.
But like,
Yeah,
people,
so,
the thing
course,
is like people can do it for
guarantee.
8 hours, and people can do it for 2 weeks. Like, if someone wants to unalive you, like 8 hours, 2 weeks. Like,
Yeah, but I mean, I think
doesn't really
like
matter.
if I would have, I bet you a lot of what is it, Dahmer's victims, if they had like maybe gone on a few dates with the guy
Oh, a bunch of
going
them
over.
did.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I know. I watched the series. I remember.
Yeah, like a bunch of them
But
did.
yeah, and so like he is, but he like sure he's still capable of of fooling people even on a somewhat longer time frame in some instances. But I definitely think like that at least a few of his victims, if they had gotten to know him for a little longer instead of just going home with him that night, I think there's a good chance that they would have been like, actually, this guy's weird as hell. Like, I don't know. His apartment smells weird. And I don't like, yeah.
Wait, but like a bunch of people did that as well when they went home with him the first night. That's the thing. Like, that is what happened, is like they said no. Like, he got a culture within the space, right, of being this creepy guy who did creepy stuff, right? And then the space reacted to him. That's why he got banned from bathhouses. That's why he got banned from a bunch of clubs, right? So there were precautions on both sides and there were dangers on both sides. Once again, you ignore the precautions that have been placed into this side, right, to overemphasize the other one, when actually the story is not that. Wait, all I'm saying is that it's important to recognize, right, that these spaces do have a value in terms of consent and reducing danger, especially for gay and women, or gay people and women, right? Because they make sexuality a more public affair, right? Where you have fewer hierarchies. So it makes it more out in the open. So more eyes are on you, but less judgy eyes are on you, because the eyes that are on you don't care about you unless, a crime is being committed against you. So it's kind of, they're watchful, right? But they're not hierarchical. Whereas in the rest of society, it's very private and it's very hierarchical. So I agree there's an ignorance issue here, but there's a hierarchy and social pressure problem here, and privacy pressure here. And I think both of those are important, right? And I think, people who are in long-term, incredibly horrendous relationships, it could affect their life much, 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 much more. Their mental stability, right? Their ability to engage in a further relationship much, 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 much more than them, sleeping around with 100 people while they had a good time in Europe or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, mostly what I'm trying to say is that I think it's easier for someone to fool someone else into thinking that they're safe to be alone with over a time period of 8 hours versus 2 weeks plus. So I do still think it's that generally you're reducing your risk, most likely, of something bad happening by getting to know somebody more before you put yourself in an intimate and risky situation with them. So I do still view it as reckless, even if you're taking all the other precautions, to sleep with anybody who you just barely met, because I mean that you just know nothing about them. Like, and yes, but
like knowing their favorite color doesn't make them less of an unaliver. Like,
sure,
that's where I'm at. Like, that's my genuine response.
Like,
it doesn't. But like, you can tell, like, within the first 10 minutes of meeting someone if they're creepy.
Yeah, I mean,
you're
not
not going to gain much more information. Yeah, but like not always can you tell within the first 8 hours. But like most of the information's passed within like the first hour. But once again, I think you're just ignoring the increase in maybe the only way that you feel comfortable having sexuality is in a place where it just doesn't matter if you don't. Whereas you escaped an evangelical home where you were pressured to have sexuality with certain people, like within the church or something like that, right? Like then you gain the value of consent and bodily autonomy and all these things that are really important to a lot of relationships and really important to like successful relationships. This is why I have difficulty, is like I actually don't think that hookup culture, right, is overall going to be much, much more risky in terms of actual violence being committed upon you than traditional sexuality.
Yeah, I mean, again, like obviously the statistics do show that you're more at risk of SA and all these things with people who you know. So I get that, but it still just comes down to just knowing that someone is the type of person who doesn't really bother to get to know people for very long before they sleep with them, and knowing that I'm not that type of person and I wouldn't do that, and so me and this person are probably not very compatible, right, is the main thing and the main reason why I would use body count. Because I mean, you do say like it's not a great indicator of anything necessarily, but again, like if I
I say it can be an indicator. It can be an indicator. I
Yeah,
just think I'm talking about it itself. But yeah. Oh, sorry.
sure.
Anyway, yeah, I do
Um,
appreciate coming up. But yeah, I do think we understand each other.
yeah, that's fair, man. I gotta go anyway. So good talk. I'll let you move on to the next guest.
Well, thank you so
Thanks for letting me
much.
up, man. Yep. Have a good one.
Okie dokie, everyone. I'm gonna go to bed. I love you all. Go do follow my YouTube. My link is in my bio. Um, yeah. It is 5 o'clock where I'm at, so not ideal. Below ideal, actually, some would say. All right. Bye bye.